Chapter 1712. Han Fei waited for more than 3 hours after the 10,000 species genealogy in the sea was opened. 3 hours later, when the 5 big words were lit up. Then, Han Fei saw a message that made him feel uncomfortable. Above the foggy space, the information showed 10,000 species in the sea. 296202223 owner. 5065890 nearby bloodlines. Dao-seeking fish, water swamp, cyan black turtle, ancient azure dragon, time dragon carp, sea white shell, ancient essence shell, king crab, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish recommended bloodlines. Dao-seeking fish, water swamp, cyan black turtle, sea white shell, ancient essence shell, king crab. When he saw this information, Han Fei didn't feel good. Didn't Old Yuan say that there were only more than 8 million species in the vast ocean and less than 10 million species? Why did the demon purification pot show nearly 30 million? That was 30 million species of living beings. And he had swallowed the essence blood of the god of war, and was ranked more than 5 million species. What a waste of his golden blood. However, at this moment, Han Fei also realized one thing. Old Yuan said that he knew too much about this world, but it was actually just his own wishful thinking. Old Yuan was just warning him with his own experience. Although bloodlines didn't represent combat power, they represented life potential and life level. He was ranked more than 5 million species in the sea. Even if he squeezed out his potential to the extreme, he was still ranked more than 5 million. In this world, there might be many creatures who were extremely powerful when they were born, able to crush you from birth. At this moment, Han Fei realized that he was indeed a frog in a well. He thought that he was so powerful that he could kill a king as a half-king. However, at this moment, Han Fei believed that there were definitely many creatures in this world that could kill a king as a half-king. Han Fei took a deep breath. If he hadn't opened the 10,000 species genealogy in the sea today, he wouldn't even know what level he was at. Now Han Fei knew. Before, Han Fei didn't like the Taishan Sutra, which was ranked more than 5,000. Now Han Fei had a complicated look. He was afraid that he still had a long way to go. At least, should he break through to the king level? Han Fei began to doubt it. Although he had the bloodline devour divine art, which could make up for the shortcomings of his bloodline, he could use it at any level. However, the effect of the Thunder Tribulation during the Emperor Tribulation would be different. For example, if the top 1 million life levels of the 10,000 races in the vast ocean and the top 10,000 races in the 10,000 races in the vast ocean, could their tribulations be the same? Transcending the tribulation was a way to improve one's bloodline. If he could improve his life level as much as possible before the king's tribulation, would the effect of the tribulation be better? Of course, the first thing he should do now was not to consider the tribulation, but to try devouring the bloodlines of other creatures. Han Fei reached out his hand and drew out a stream of essence blood from the Dao-seeking fish. When the drop of essence blood was swallowed by Han Fei, all the essence blood in his body suddenly began to move crazily. They instantly tore that drop of blood into pieces. At this time, golden blood vessels slowly appeared in Han Fei's dantian. A moment later, a small, illusory fish appeared in his dantian. In just a moment, the little fish was covered by Han Fei's golden blood. In the end, it disappeared without a trace. 10,000 races in the vast ocean. 296202223 in progress. Owner. 4865894 nearby bloodlines. Water luster, ancient azure dragon, time dragon carp, royal sea white clam, ancient essence clam, king crab, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish recommended bloodlines. Water luster, royal sea white clam, ancient essence clam, king crab. This time, Han Fei keenly noticed that the option of the cyan tortoise was gone. It meant that after he devoured the bloodline of the Dao-seeking fish, he didn't need to devour the cyan tortoise anymore. The cyan tortoise was Old Yuan's Gui Sanqing. The Dao-seeking fish was legendary, but Gui Sanqing, might not even have a legendary quality. However, to Han Fei's surprise, his life level had improved a lot. With only one improvement, his ranking had risen by almost 200,000. Immediately, Han Fei realized that the effect of the Bloodline Devour Divine Art on improving the level of bloodline was very low when devouring creatures of the same level. Even if he devoured a powerful bloodline, he wouldn't immediately improve to the same level as the creature of that race. Nothing can be accomplished overnight, and the same goes for magic. However, Han Fei had at least grasped one thing, which was that the ranking of legendary creatures in the vast ocean should be around 5 million. And the ranking of human beings was probably more than 10 million. The reason why he was ranked 5 million at the beginning was probably because he had fused with the essence blood of the god of war. At the same time, he had been constantly refining his flesh and blood. Otherwise, his ranking would have been much lower than it was now. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled into a smile. The illusion of mountains and rivers appeared, and Han Fei walked into the sea-quelling painting and appeared on the sea. Water luster suddenly rushed out of the sea. Amidst the waves, the water ball protected the Ba King egg. "Master, why are you here?" Han Fei said casually. "I'm fine. Water luster, give me a drop of your essence blood." Water luster's life belonged to Han Fei, so it didn't care about a drop of essence blood. So, it gave it to Han Fei without hesitation. Han Fei returned to forge the universe. However, Han Fei didn't immediately devour Water luster's essence blood. Because to devour the essence blood, his body needed to fully adapt to the bloodline that had just been replaced, which would take time. And how long exactly would it take? Han Fei wasn't sure. So, he still needed to wait. At least, Han Fei didn't have to worry about not having a bloodline to improve for the time being. With the bloodlines of Water luster, the Sea Guard White Shell, the White Armor Emperor, and the Ba King, Han Fei estimated that it shouldn't be a problem for him to improve by 1,000,000. To be precise, on the 27th day, Han Fei felt that he had completely adapted to the devouring this time. Of course, only less than 2 days had passed in the outside world. And Han Fei's personal information also began to change. Owner Han Fei level greater than 89 Half-King, 10,000 species in the vast ocean, 4865894 chaotic energy 1, 483 spiritual power greater than 199,999, perception range greater than 80,000 waves, power greater than 21,201 waves, first spiritual heritage, unknown second spiritual heritage, unknown first spiritual beast twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish, level 78, second spiritual beast king sparrow, level 75, main art void arrival, level 7 of void fishing, king level, divine quality. Among them, the biggest change was the ranking of the 10,000 species in the vast ocean. After devouring the bloodline of the Tao-seeking fish, his soul power didn't seem to have been improved much. His spiritual power seemed to have been improved by less than 800 points, which was right before the 200,000 mark. As for his strength, it was slightly improved too, but only less than 300 waves. So, Han Fei didn't think there was much difference between the rank of 5 million and the rank of 4,800,000 in terms of life level or bloodline. Of course, maybe it was because the Tao-seeking fish was only a legendary creature, and Han Fei's bloodline level was similar to theirs. So, there wasn't any difference. The King Sparrow, on the other hand, had reached level 75, which made Han Fei speechless. How long had it been since he came out? Had the King Sparrow grown so much that it didn't make any sense? Han Fei thought to himself, when I return to the yin-yang sky and get the essence blood of the King Sparrow and the others, I'll definitely be in the top 10,000 of the 10,000 species in the vast ocean. At this moment, Han Fei immediately swallowed the essence blood of Water luster. When the shadow of the big bird appeared in his dantian, Han Fei's information changed. Owner Han Fei level greater than 89 Half-King, 10,000 species in the vast ocean 486-5894 evolving. 0/133 days. Chaotic energy 1-483 spiritual power 199999 perception range greater than 80,000 kilometers strength greater than 21,201 waves first spiritual heritage unknown second spiritual heritage unknown first spiritual beast twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish level 78 second spiritual beast king sparrow level 75 main art void arrival Level 7 of Void Fishing, King Level, Divine. Quality. At this point, Han Fei finally realized that the process of devouring the bloodline of other species wasn't as fast as he thought. When he swallowed the Tao-seeking fish, the countdown didn't show up yet. However, when he swallowed the Tao-seeking fish the second time, the countdown appeared. It seemed that the first time was just for reference. It took 133 days to devour the essence blood of water luster? It was almost 5 times longer than the Tao-seeking fish. Although it would only take more than 8 days in normal time, Han Fei couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seemed that the specific operation was much more difficult than he thought. If he swallowed the bloodline of the royal sea white shell, the Ba King, or even the Azure Dragon, wouldn't it take years to devour one of them? Even if it was in accelerated time, it wouldn't be possible without a few months, right? He wondered how much stronger he would be after swallowing the essence blood of water luster this time. Would there be any signs of his realm slipping? On the 5th day, Han Fei was studying the grand mystic body. Han Fei wondered, the demon purification pot confuse arts. If I put many body-tempering arts of the same level together, will I deduce a more powerful body-tempering art? However, he only had one venerable level, divine quality body-tempering art, the ancient desolate war body. The deduction of the indestructible overlord body had led to the grand mystic body, a supreme technique. Before, Han Fei looked down on the grand mystic body. Although he still didn't like it, it seemed that the level of the grand mystic body was much higher than that of his bloodline in the 10,000 species in the vast ocean. However, after reading the cultivation method of the grand mystic body, Han Fei found that he had to cultivate a boneless body. In other words, he would no longer be a human being without bones. When Han Fei was speechless about the grand mystic body, the old turtle reminded him, "We've arrived at the thunder fire sky." The second chapter. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 17:13. No matter where you were, as long as you had money and resources, good things could be found. Of course, there were also things that he couldn't get his hands on. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't be able to get his hands on them. The middle-aged manager of the 10,000 Treasure Pavilion waved his hand, and a dozen large boxes appeared in front of Han Fei. Bam! 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 The boxes were opened, and Han Fei saw that 9 of them were weapons and battlesuits. Han Fei didn't lack these. There were more than 9,000 pieces of them in Forge the Universe. Why would he want them? So, Han Fei went straight to the other 3 boxes. There was a spiritual fruit, an array book, and a piece of fire crystal in each of them. Seeing that Han Fei didn't care about the ultra-quality divine weapons at all, the middle-aged man immediately realized that this person must have seen treasures like ultra-quality divine weapons, so he was not interested in weapons at all. The middle-aged man smiled and said, "Sir, this spiritual fruit is not easy to come by. This is a dragon blood fruit, an ultra-quality spiritual fruit from the dragon subduing heaven. It grows in dragon blood and is very valuable. It is of great benefit to body refining." In Han Fei's eyes, information emerged. Name Dragon Blood Fruit Introduction. This is an ultra-quality fruit grown in the land irrigated by dragon blood. It can enhance physical strength, blood, energy, and potential. Level C Expansion Realm Quality Ultra Quality contains spiritual energy greater than 826,000 points. Effect: if eaten directly, it can increase a lot of energy. stimulate the body's potential for a period of time in the future, and improve the strength of blood. It can be eaten repeatedly. Han Fei frowned. This fruit was interesting. However, Han Fei still looked at the other two items. The middle-aged man introduced, "Sir, this array book is said to be from the Nine-Palace Heaven. You know that the Nine-Palace Heaven has been sealed for tens of thousands of years. Can you imagine the value of this book?" Han Fei smiled faintly. "The array book from the Nine-Palace Heaven is not necessarily the best, and I don't know how many copies there are. Let me have a look." The middle-aged man was a bit embarrassed, but he guessed that Han Fei's identity was not simple, so he immediately said, "Sir, you can only read 3 pages at most. If you want to read more, you have to buy it." Han Fei nodded slightly. "Okay." Han Fei looked at the array book. As the pages turned, complicated and dense array patterns appeared on the pages. However, Han Fei immediately discovered that these complicated array patterns were just the concept of the fusion of arrays. He could also draw this thing, so there was nothing special about it. 1 page, 2 pages, 3 pages. Han Fei shook his head slightly and stopped looking at the array book. He asked, "What about this stone?" When Han Fei was reading the array book, his indifferent expression couldn't be hidden from the middle-aged man. After all, having been in business for so many years, he still had a good eye. The middle-aged man immediately suspected that this person was probably also a master of arrays. The middle-aged man hurriedly said, "Guest, the third stone is a special item of our Thunderfire sky. It's called the Thunderfire Stone, and it's a wondrous stone formed by absorbing lightning from a mysterious crystal. It could be used to refine weapons and act as a lightning fire. Of course, one thunder flame stone could only be used for about 100 breaths of time. After all, a heaven-earth spiritual flame like the thunder flame is extremely rare. I heard that thunder and fire can be used to refine sea-quelling bizarre treasures. Is that true?" The middle-aged man grinned. "Ha ha. Guest, of course it's true that thunder and fire can be used to refine sea-quelling bizarre treasures. You know, in the entire 36 mysterious heavens, our Thunderfire sky has made the most sea-quelling bizarre treasures. Most of them are forged with thunder and fire. Of course we can't see it. After all, it's the power of the Thunder Lord." Han Fei nodded slightly. "I'll take that dragon blood fruit. Is there anything better in the 10,000 treasure pavilion?" The middle-aged man was slightly taken aback. There are so many treasures, but this person only wants 1 dragon blood fruit? It seems that this person's taste is very high. However, Han Fei only asked about sea-quelling bizarre treasures and didn't care about ultra-quality divine weapons at all. It must be noted that treasures like sea-quelling bizarre treasures would be fought over by the 36 immortal palaces as soon as they appeared. In the Thunderfire sky, ultra-quality divine weapons were actually the best treasures, which were beyond the reach of ordinary people. Hearing Han Fei's words, the middle-aged man pondered for a moment. "Guest, to tell you the truth, this dragon blood fruit, there are 6 more in the 10,000 treasure pavilion. As for the others," Han Fei suddenly said, "what about techniques? Are there no venerable level techniques in the 10,000 treasure pavilion except for weapons?" The middle-aged man was stunned for a moment. "Techniques? We do have these, but they are not so precious. Please take a look." The middle-aged man waved his hand casually, and several techniques appeared in front of Han Fei. The middle-aged man said, "Guest, these are already the most powerful techniques that the Thunderfire sky can trade with the outside world. If there are more powerful techniques, we don't know about them. I'm afraid the higher-ups won't allow them to be circulated." Han Fei glanced at them. These books were written, Lightning Strike, 9 Forged Thunder Hammer, Thunder Swallowing Body, and Heavenly Fire Body Polishing Technique. The middle-aged man said, "Guest, to tell you the truth, the Thunder Swallowing Body and Heavenly Fire Body Polishing Technique are the best body tempering techniques in the Thunderfire Sky Venerable Realm. You must also be a body tempering cultivator. You should know how difficult it is and how extravagant it is. You must be buying the dragon blood fruit for this reason, right? Han Fei glanced at them and smiled faintly. I'll take all of these. All of them. The middle-aged man couldn't help saying, Guest, although these techniques are not as valuable as sea-quelling bizarre treasures, they are much more precious than ultra-quality divine weapons. Han Fei smiled faintly. Does the 10,000 treasure pavilion accept things? The middle-aged man said, Of course, as long as your things are good enough. Han Fei waved his hand and threw out 30 ultra-quality divine weapons. Hiss! Han Fei waved his hand, and the middle-aged man was stunned. Damn it, are you really not here to make trouble? He is not from the thunder-fire sky, but he took out 30 ultra-quality divine weapons? None of the ultra-quality divine weapons Han Fei picked were forged by the thunder-fire sky. Because in terms of forging techniques, many of them were spiritual energy forging techniques, which couldn't be from the thunder-fire sky. Therefore, when the middle-aged man glanced at Han Fei's batch of ultra-quality divine weapons, he immediately said, Guest, do you want all the dragon blood fruits? Han Fei nodded. All of them. The middle-aged man immediately grinned. Guest, the value of the dragon blood fruit is equal to that of an ultra-quality divine weapon. Han Fei nodded slightly. Of course. In Han Fei's eyes, the value of this dragon blood fruit might be even higher than that of an ultra-quality divine weapon. According to the value of an ultra-quality divine weapon, it was nothing. In the end, 7 dragon blood fruits and 4 great techniques were worth a total of 9 ultra-quality divine weapons. Of course, Han Fei also wanted to sell the remaining 21 ultra-quality divine weapons. There was no other reason but that he had too many of them. The middle-aged man said, Guest, the ultra-quality divine weapons have different prices due to different styles. I will quote you according to the ultra-quality spiritual stones. Do you have any objections? Han Fei shook his head. No. The middle-aged man said, Guest, if calculated in ultra-quality spiritual stones, the total value of your 21 ultra-quality divine weapons is about 590,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones. I will give you 600,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones. Han Fei thought to himself, on average, an ultra-quality divine weapon is priced at 30,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones. This price is not bad. After all, they were ultra-quality spiritual stones, each of which contained millions of spiritual energy. The ultra-quality spiritual stones were much more useful than ultra-quality divine weapons. Of course, he needed them more. Han Fei nodded. Okay. With more than 600,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones, Han Fei knew that he wouldn't be short of spiritual energy resources for a long time in the future. However, he was still short of some energy fruit. Han Fei asked, Does the 10,000 treasure pavilion sell spiritual fruits? The middle-aged man immediately smiled and said, Of course. What type of spiritual fruit do you want? Han Fei thought for a moment. Vitality fruits, energy fruits, and highly toxic ones. Highly toxic? The middle-aged man was slightly taken aback. It was understandable that he wanted vitality fruits and energy fruit, but he wanted highly toxic spiritual fruits? What did he mean? Didn't he want anti-poison fruits? Was this person also a poison cultivator? However, whatever the guest wanted, the shop would provide. There was nothing to say. After all, Han Fei was very valuable. Immediately, the middle-aged man stopped guessing what Han Fei was going to do with it. He said, Everyone, take out all the vitality fruits, energy fruits, and poisonous herbs and fruits in the shop. Remember, all of them. After a while, in a hall of the 10,000 treasure pavilion, Han Fei looked at more than 12,000 spiritual fruits. The middle-aged man grinned and said, Sir, that's all. Han Fei nodded. That's all? Under the envious gazes of a group of waiters, the middle-aged man happily handed over the spiritual fruits to Han Fei. Sir, these 12,000 spiritual fruits are already the best stock in our heavenly south region. I don't think you will be interested in the low-quality ones. These spiritual fruits are worth a total of 192,342 ultra-quality spiritual stones. Let me make the decision. I'll erase the 2,342 spirit stones and give you another 410,000 top-grade spirit stones. What do you think? Han Fei nodded slightly. No problem. The middle-aged man was very excited. Even in the Thunder Fire Heaven, ultra-quality divine weapons couldn't be made easily. Which island in the Thunder City didn't have a 10,000 treasure pavilion? If the 10,000 treasure pavilion in the Heavenly South region collected a wave of ultra-quality divine weapons from Han Fei, it could provide more than 50 ultra-quality divine weapons at once. This would definitely cause a small wave of sensation. To refine an ultra-quality divine weapon, first of all, you had to have materials, and secondly, you had to have a refiner. Even a refiner would have to spend several months to forge. Therefore, in the vast Thunder City, ultra-quality divine weapons were in short supply. The middle-aged man calculated in his heart that he could make at least nearly 1,000,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones from this business. If he added 2 points, it would be as high as 200,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones. Just thinking about it, he was very excited. The middle-aged man smiled, paid the balance to Han Fei, and said to Han Fei enthusiastically, "Sir, in 7 days, the auction of the Heavenly South region will be held by the 10,000 treasure pavilion. If you are not in a hurry, I can arrange the best accommodation for you. At that time, many people from the 13 outer heavens will come, which is a rare event. What do you think, sir?" Han Fei's heart did a flip. There should be a lot of good things in the auction of the outer heavens, right? He could have a look. Han Fei smiled faintly. "Will anyone from the 13 inner heavens come?" The middle-aged man smiled awkwardly. "That's rare, but not impossible. Occasionally there will be." Han Fei nodded. "Okay. Then I'll stay here first." The middle-aged man was also taken aback. What he said just now was just polite words. Generally speaking, after doing such a big business, some customers would be worried about their safety and wouldn't let the store arrange accommodation for them. However, Han Fei's attitude was very relaxed, as if he didn't take it seriously at all. Immediately, the middle-aged man was overjoyed again. This customer in front of him is amazing. So, the middle-aged man quickly winked and waved to a waiter. "Tian'er, come here. Take the customer to the heavenly room of the 10,000 treasure pavilion to rest. During this period, you just need to serve the customer closely. You must serve the customer well." A young girl, who was only a peak-level hidden fisher, hurriedly ran over and bowed slightly to Han Fei. "Sir, Tian'er will take you to rest, huh?" Right at this moment, a chilly aura suddenly assaulted his face. Han Fei and the others turned their heads, only to hear Nian touch quietly and say, "Brother, what a beautiful sister." Chapter 17:14. Different from other people's surprise, Han Fei sensed that Snowmorn was shivering all of a sudden. Snowmorn was his weapon. Why would it shiver for no reason when it saw someone else? Han Fei looked back, only to see a peak-level venerable in a white cloak. She was followed by 2 peak-level junior venerables. This woman's bearing was graceful. She wore a white snow cloak, and her complexion was fair. At first glance, she seemed cold, but there was a hint of warmth at the corner of her brows. Next to her was a peak-level venerable. There was no telling if it was because of the unusual movement of Snowmorn, but when Han Fei looked at the woman was looking at him too. The two of them looked at each other, and they seemed to be a little surprised. The man next to the woman slightly frowned and disliked Han Fei. Han Fei didn't think it was a big deal. However, when the woman passed by Han Fei, she stopped and looked at him. "Have we met before?" Han Fei had already scanned them in his head, and shook his head slightly. "No, I haven't." The woman nodded and didn't say anything else. The man next to her, as if to avoid her and Han Fei's eyes, simply asked, "Manager, I'm told that the Myriad Treasure Pavilion in the south has an intact dragon blood fruit. Take it out. We'll take all of it. The middle-aged man was briefly stunned and looked at Han Fei. He didn't know that so many people wanted dragon blood fruits today. While the dragon blood fruits were precious, nobody had bought them for a long time. After all, a fruit was as valuable as an ultra-quality divine weapon. He couldn't afford it even if he wanted to. The middle-aged man said, "Well, guest from the snow world, the dragon blood fruits in the South Thousand Treasure Pavilion have all been sold." The young man's face changed greatly. "What? Not a single one is left? Who bought it?" The middle-aged man said in embarrassment, "Well, I'm sorry. Sir, the Myriad Treasure Pavilion won't disclose the privacy of any customer. If you want a treasure like the dragon blood fruit, you can wait for a few days. The South Thousand auction will be held in 7 days. If you're not in a hurry." Humph. However, the young man snorted. "Rules are dead, but people are alive. All we want is the dragon blood fruit. All you have to do is to tell me who bought it." The woman said, "Forget it. Since it's already been bought by someone else, it's the same to wait for the auction." The young man's face darkened. "No. Ling your health is more important. Only items of extreme yang such as the dragon blood fruit would have such a miraculous effect. One pill can alleviate nearly 10 years of pain. How can I just let it go like this?" At this moment, Han Fei slowly frowned. He hoped that the boss of the 10,000 Treasure Pavilion wouldn't make a mistake. He held Nian Er's hand and said, "Nian Er, let's go." But Nian Er looked at Han Fei, then at the beautiful woman, and couldn't help saying, "Brother, sister seems to be sick. Do you want to give one to her?" Hearing Nian Er's words, Han Fei could not help but shrug. "Looks like I'll have to teach Nian Er in the future. Don't abuse your compassion." Sure enough, in the next moment, the young man behind him shouted, "Stop right there." Holding Nian Er's hand, Han Fei slowly turned around and said indifferently, "What do you think?" The young man frowned. "Brat, it was you who bought the dragon blood fruit?" Han Fei chuckled. "It was me. So what?" The young man glanced at the woman, then lowered his voice and said, "I'll buy the dragon blood fruit at double the price. Please let go." Han Fei smiled faintly. "It's useful to me. So, it's not for sale." The young man was about to lose his temper, but a layer of frost blocked him. The woman just now took 2 steps forward and said slightly apologetically, "Fellow cultivator, my friend was a little impulsive because he was anxious to treat my illness. I apologize to you on his behalf. However, the dragon blood fruit is of great use to me. I wonder if you can bear to part with it and exchange it for one." Han Fei couldn't help but grin and sneered. "You only want one?" The young man also said, "Ling one is not enough." The woman nodded slightly. "One is enough. The dragon blood fruit only treats the symptoms but not the root cause. It's only delaying for time." At this moment, the old turtle's voice sounded in Han Fei's heart. "This person's body is extremely mean and cold because she lacks a soul. If you take something with extreme yang without her soul, it will only clash with her coldness and consume her lifespan." Han Fei replied, "No wonder. This person is at the peak level of the venerable realm, but she makes me feel weak. Can my Tianqi Great Path save her?" The old turtle said, "No, she can't. She has a congenital defect. The power of extreme een and cold can help her make breakthroughs at an inhuman speed, but it will also consume her lifespan at an inhuman speed. Your Tianqi Great Path can't summon souls, so its effect on her is actually similar to that of the dragon blood fruit." Han Fei understood. In the 10,000 Treasure Pavilion, under the gazes of those people, Han Fei shook his head slightly. "No! How dare you? Brat, you are just a junior venerable. Believe it or not, I'll make sure that you can't walk out of Thunder City." However, the young man was enraged, and he almost flew into a rage. Han Fei glanced at the young man disdainfully. "You're just a peak-level venerable. How dare you make sure that I can't walk out of Thunder City?" Are people from the ice and snow heaven so arrogant now? Arrogant! In an instant, the middle-aged man from the 10,000 treasure pavilion and the people around him, including the woman, all looked at Han Fei in surprise. And Yen also clenched her fists and said, "My brother is very powerful. He's not afraid of you." The young man narrowed his eyes. "Is this person's identity not ordinary?" He snorted coldly. "If the ice and snow heaven is not qualified, what about the golden crow heaven?" An expert from the inner domain. The middle-aged man gasped. "How come even an expert from the inner domain is here?" Seeing the woman frown slightly, Han Fei understood what was going on. Han Fei said, "You can call the people of the Golden Crow Heaven and try to keep me here." Then Han Fei looked at the woman from the Ice and Snow Heaven and said, "You want to use the fire of the Golden Crow Heaven to cure your illness. But you found that your lifespan is being consumed rapidly and they can't do anything, right?" The man shouted, "What do you know? Don't spout nonsense again. Only the Golden Crow Heaven can cure Ling Er's illness." But the woman's pupils suddenly constricted and she looked at Han Fei in surprise. "Sir, are you from the Medicine King Heaven?" Han Fei said, "Can the Medicine King Heaven save you?" The woman shook her head. "No." Han Fei said, "You have a body of extreme yin and extreme cold. Because you lack a soul, any spirit treasure of extreme yang will be extremely poisonous to you. So, I'm actually helping you by not exchanging the dragon blood fruit with you. Otherwise, it will only accelerate the reduction of your lifespan." Then, Han Fei took Nian Er's hand and was about to leave. Han Fei said as he walked, "Nian Er, sometimes, helping others depends on fate. You can't help others when they are in trouble. Most of the time, not only will you not help them, but you may also hurt them." The two junior venerables next to the woman were shocked. "How can this be? Holy girl Chu Ling, your lifespan is really decreasing?" The man looked shocked. "How is that possible? Nonsense, this guy is talking nonsense. Ling Er, you can't trust him. When I become half a king, I will definitely be able to activate the Golden Crow Fire Seed and save you." Huh! After a few steps, Han Fei stopped and slightly frowned. Han Fei looked back at the woman and asked, "Girl, what's your name?" The man from the Golden Crow Heaven said, "What do you want?" The woman from the Ice Snow Heaven bowed slightly. "Bingxue Chuling of the Snow God Temple from the Ice Snow Heaven." Han Fei was stunned for a long time. Sure enough, it was fate that brought them together from 1,000 miles away, but if not, they wouldn't meet face to face. It turned out that Bingxue Chuling was the holy girl of the Ice Snow Heaven, but he happened to meet her in the Thunder Fire Heaven. Han Fei really didn't know what to say. Maybe everything in this world was just a coincidence. The heavenly Tao was full of twists and turns, but there was always a round trip. Han Fei hesitated and said with his soul, "I may be able to help you, but I don't like the idiot around you. I'll stay here for the auction these days. It's not hard to find her." Half a king. Bingxue Chuling's pupils constricted again. Han Fei clearly showed the strength of a beginner venerable. However, he could avoid everyone else and directly send a voice transmission to her, which was something that only a half-king could do. No wonder this person was not worried or scared at all when he heard about the Golden Crow Heaven. He was already a half-king, unless he was killed by multiple half-kings or a king. Otherwise, who could easily defeat a half-king? Han Fei said, turned to look at Tian Er, who had been worried to death, and smiled. "Okay, lead the way." In the field. The middle-aged man from the 10,000 treasure pavilion secretly noted that Han Fei was definitely not an ordinary person. Even when facing the holy girl of the Snow God Temple, he refused resolutely without batting an eyelid. As for the strong man from the Golden Crow Heaven, he looked disdainful. He was definitely strong from the bottom of his heart. He was a businessman. Although his cultivation level was not high, he had seen all kinds of people. Therefore, the middle-aged man immediately confirmed that Han Fei was not an ordinary person. Bingxue Chuling was also surprised. She lost a soul, which was the same as what the Medicine King said. However, he said he could help her? Could it be that he could help her summon her soul? The most annoyed one was the man from the Golden Crow Heaven. At this moment, he gritted his teeth. If it weren't for Bingxue Chuling, he would have already gone up to kill Han Fei. At this moment, he said, Ling this guy is arrogant. Let me investigate his background. Bingxue Chuling frowned and looked at the young man. Okay, Jin Quan. He's right. I do lack a soul. Maybe he's right. The power of extreme yang will only accelerate my death. Chapter 1715. In fact, the 10,000 Treasure Tower was often a place where distinguished guests from the 13 outer heavens would stay. Those who were able to visit the immortal palace next door were usually not simple characters. They also had some family background. If Han Fei took out 30 ultra-quality divine weapons at once, he would be a distinguished guest. This 10,000 Treasure Tower was not far from the 10,000 Treasure Pavilion and had more than 30 floors. Han Fei was directly arranged to the top floor of the 10,000 Treasure Tower, which represented his status. On the top floor, half of the whole floor was for Han Fei to live. All the facilities here were as if he had opened a super-luxury hotel. Standing on the top floor, he could see the scene in the distance. Outside the 10,000 Treasure Tower, in addition to the refining shops, there were mostly some markets. However, except for some local characteristics, the types of markets were no different from other immortal palaces. Nien'er said, Brother, I want to go out to play. Han Fei smiled and looked at Xiao Se. I have something to do. Take Nien'er to play nearby, but don't go too far. Xiao Se nodded slightly. As an intermediate venerable, it was easy for him to take care of Nien'er. Nien'er asked, Brother, aren't you going? Han Fei smiled and said, Nien'er, be a good girl. I still have something to do. Go out and buy whatever you want and eat whatever you want. Don't worry about it. Han Fei threw out a sun-moon shell. After Xiao Se left with Nien'er, Han Fei waved his hand casually. The 4 great techniques he bought from the 10,000 Treasure Pavilion were placed in front of Han Fei one by one. When he was on the ship, Han Fei thought of the Thunder Fire Heaven and learned the refining techniques here. It was actually very simple for him. He just needed to find 2 of the mainstream refining techniques of the Thunder Fire Heaven. The Lightning Strike technique he bought from the 10,000 Treasure Pavilion was extraordinary. Although it was a venerable level mid-quality technique, it should be possible to deduce the heaven-asking thunder summoning technique. Sure enough, Han Fei only spent a wisp of chaotic energy and deduced the heaven-asking thunder summoning technique in one go. Heaven-asking thunder summoning technique, venerable level ultra quality. Note: gathers the power of the heavens, attracts lightning, through drawing the power of lightning from the 9 heavens, into the body of the hammer, using force to hammer, using the power of lightning to expel impurities, achieving the effect of purifying heavenly energy. This was a great artifact refinement art. Those who were not body cultivators should not try it lightly. Deduction consumption, 10 strands of chaotic energy. Note: this lightning is just ordinary lightning. When Han Fei saw that the lightning was just an ordinary one, he immediately lost interest. It seemed that this lightning-seeking heavens technique was still not strong enough. His refining skills were not bad, and he could already forge supreme-grade divine weapons. If it was just ordinary lightning, he still couldn't make a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. So, Han Fei didn't intend to stay here. Continue the deduction. A moment later, a new technique appeared in Han Fei's head. Sky Thunder Seeking Technique, venerable level, divine quality. Note: gathers the power of the heavens to form the lightning gathering formation, activates the heavenly Tao, seeks the 9 heavens lightning, and draws it into the body of the hammer, using force to hammer, using the power of the lightning to expel impurities, achieving the effect of purifying the heavenly energy. This was a great refining technique, and unless one had a strong cultivation, one should not try it lightly. Deduction consumption. 100 strands of chaotic energy. Note: when you master this technique, there is a certain chance that you will get purple lightning. When he saw the sky thunder-seeking technique, Han Fei nodded in satisfaction. If there was purple lightning, it would be great for his body tempering. At this moment, Han Fei felt that there was no need to continue the deduction. If he continued, he would get the sea expansion technique. Besides, it would consume a lot of chaotic energy. Right now, he should be accumulating chaos chi, not consuming it. After getting the sky thunder-seeking technique, Han Fei still needed a hammer technique. Originally, Han Fei could deduce the 100 battles divine hammer. However, he was used to using knives and wasn't used to using hammers. Besides, the 100 battles divine hammer was a combat technique. If it wasn't necessary, he wouldn't use this technique again in the future, so he wouldn't refuse it. Han Fei deduced the 9 forging thunder hammer, the thunder swallowing body, and the heavenly fire body polishing technique one after another. The results were: treasure thunder hammer, venerable level, divine quality. Note: practicing this hammer will give you the appearance of the thunder god. The practitioner's physique must be extremely strong, and his strength must reach at least 10,000 waves in order to wield this hammer. This technique can also be used as a body tempering technique. Disadvantage: this technique consumes a lot of hammers. Deduction cost: 100 wisps of chaotic energy. Note: it may induce a thunder body. This technique was both a hammer technique and a body tempering technique. If so, he would lose 3 body tempering techniques at once, wouldn't he? He continued reading. Thunder body, venerable level, divine quality. Note: attracting lightning through refining, attracting lightning to temper the body, and tempering the body to create a thunder body. Once the thunder body is created, the mortal bloodline can enter the heavenly bloodline. Those who have mastered the thunder body are born to resist lightning, which is more than twice as effective as ordinary people in the same realm. Disadvantage: to practice the thunder body, you need to use a lot of the thunder summoning technique, or find a place with a lot of lightning to temper the body. Deduction cost: 100 wisps of chaotic energy. Note: the main problem of this technique is to search for lightning. Han Fei felt that he should be able to practice the thunder body after he returned to the savage abyss and tempered it in the thunder prison for a few years. The next technique: heavenly fire, venerable level, divine quality. Note: attract heavenly fire to temper the body, set up a barrier, use the barrier as the furnace, and the body as the weapon to create a place of extreme yang. It will take 49 years of refining every day. Before practicing this technique, you can practice the thunder body first. The effect may be doubled. Disadvantage: to practice the heavenly fire body, you need to have a strong physique to survive the practice. Deduction cost: 100 wisps of chaotic energy. Note: don't underestimate the power of heavenly fire. Looking at the heavenly fire body, Han Fei remembered that the body tempering technique that the Giant King used for him was also to attract heavenly fire to temper his body. However, it was different from directly attracting heavenly fire to refine stones and wrapping himself in it. However, the heavenly fire body needed 49 years of refining. Who could afford to waste such a long time? He was not in Forge the Universe, but 49 years in the outside world. After reading the last 3 techniques, Han Fei thought of something. If I add the ancient desolate war body, I should have 4 peak-level venerable body tempering techniques, right? What about the fusion of the demon purification pot? If I can collect some more body tempering techniques, deduce them to the same level, and then merge them together, can I create a more powerful body tempering technique than the Taishan body? If I can deduce it, then the thunder body and heavenly fire body will just be a transition. By then, once I practice the super body tempering technique, my strength will definitely improve by leaps and bounds. Sitting cross-legged, Han Fei slowly got up and smiled. Obviously, these great techniques of the Thunder Fire Heaven should be slightly modified by the Lord of Thunder and Fire and then slowly released. Therefore, in the end, the results of his deduction were more or less integrated. Or, it was possible that the Lord of Thunder and Fire's technique would be different from what he deduced. The Lord of Thunder and Fire probably had, at most, one technique in the sea expansion realm. Otherwise, if his many cultivation techniques all reached the sea expansion realm, he wouldn't be able to survive. The Thunder Fire Heaven would not become one of the 13 outer heavens, but the 13 inner heavens. It would even be comparable to the powerful immortal palace in the immeasurable heaven. However, Han Fei didn't panic. He had just come to the outer heavens, and the Thunder Fire Heaven was only the first immortal palace force he had come to. After looking for Yin he had to go to the Taishan Heaven. It was said that the Taishan Heaven had a collection of strange techniques in the world. Then, there might be many body tempering techniques. If he could get some of them, maybe he could create an unparalleled great technique. Just when Han Fei was still immersed in his fantasy, suddenly, Xiao Sei's voice came. Han Fei Xiao Sei only called Han Fei's name, and Han Fei's perception swept over. At the same time, another perception swept over, and the two perceptions collided in the void. Han Fei felt that the other party's soul was strong and seemed to want to fight him. Humph! Han Fei's soul turned into a thorn, pierced through the void, and directly pierced the person's soul. The next moment, Han Fei appeared outside a restaurant in the blink of an eye. When Han Fei arrived, he saw a trace of blood overflowing from the corner of Xiao Sei's mouth. And Yen was held by a young woman. There were 3 people on the other side, a young man, a young woman, and a white-haired old man. The young man, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth, was glaring at Han Fei fiercely. "Brother!" Yen called out to Han Fei anxiously, seeming to want to break free from the young woman's hand. In an instant, monstrous murderous intent enveloped the 3 people opposite. The young man and the young woman were horrified, as if they had fallen into the devil's altar. The woman's face was pale, and she was shocked. What a terrible murderous intent! How many souls have died in his hands? And the man, trying to resist Han Fei's murderous intent, was bleeding from the corner of his mouth. The number of people Han Fei had killed was probably more than the number of meals he had eaten. How could he resist it? Compared to these 2 people, the old man opposite could still maintain his figure and wasn't embarrassed. At that moment, Han Fei's eyes were bloodthirsty, and he looked at the young woman coldly. "Let go." The young woman subconsciously let go and didn't dare to grab him again. Nian hurriedly broke free from the woman and ran to Han Fei. Nian was in tears. "Brother, they want to take me away." Han Fei wasn't afraid of killing in the Thunder Fire Heaven. Even if the Lord of Thunder Fire came, he could escape by himself. Once he entered the sea, no one could do anything to him in the vast world. The old man hurriedly cupped his hands and said, "Fellow cultivator, it's a misunderstanding, it's all a misunderstanding. Please listen to my explanation." "Humph!" Han Fei snorted, and his murderous intent disappeared. Then he looked at the old man coldly and said, "You'd better think about how to explain. Whether you can walk out of the Thunder Fire Heaven depends on how you explain it." Chapter 17-16. Given Han Fei's personality, even in the outside world, he wasn't the kind of person to be bullied. As the 9th Immortal Master, how could he be bullied by a group of venerables? At this moment, Han Fei looked coldly at the old man. Just as he said, if this old man didn't have a good explanation, they would be robbed the moment they left the Thunder Fire sky. Although the old man was a peak venerable, he couldn't withstand Han Fei's pressure. He slowly said, "Fellow Taoist, we are from the Medicine King Heaven. We came to Thunder Fire City to participate in the Thunder City's Heavenly South auction. Today we met this girl by chance and know that she has an extraordinary bloodline. She might be able to enter the Medicine King sky and even the Immortal Palace. Just now we were just checking her aptitude." "Humph!" Han Fei sneered. Do I need you to check Nian Er's aptitude? Besides, how could you injure my servant when you're just checking his aptitude? The woman said in surprise. He was the one who attacked first. We were just checking her aptitude. He thought we were robbing her. Han Fei looked back at Xiao Sei, who said with an ugly expression, Young master, don't let others check. Han Fei said indifferently, Did they have time to check? This time, before Xiao Sei could speak, the woman said, No. He sent you a voice transmission the moment he attacked. But you arrived. How could I have time to check? Han Fei asked, Just now, Nian Er said you were taking her away. What's going on? The old man said, Well, this girl just thought we were taking her away. Humph. Han Fei put away his fierce gaze and said calmly, This time is just a warning to you. Don't think you can do whatever you want just because the Medicine King sky is in the inner area. If you do this again, kill. Han Fei secretly used the power of the 100-beast soul-devouring roar. How could the three resist it? So, almost at the same time, everyone, including the white-haired old man, felt their chests tighten. A mouthful of blood rushed to their throats. The white-haired old man was shocked. What the hell is this? Judging from his attire, this person was definitely not someone from Thunderfire Sky. However, his strength was at least half a martial king. Han Fei turned around and smiled. Nian Er, shall we continue? I'll personally show you around. Okay, Nian Er was still afraid of strangers. She glanced at the people from the Medicine King Dome in the end, as if she still had lingering fears. After a while, Xiao Sei looked at Han Fei. These people seem to be extraordinary. Is it okay to offend them? Han Fei chuckled. Offended? If they were not in Thunder City, they would have been drifting on the sea. Furthermore, the sky of the Medicine Kings was part of the inner region. The people of the inner region would eventually return to the inner region. At that time, we might even have to borrow their route. On the other side, the Herb King Dome trio were still in a state of shock. The woman said with astonishment, Grandpa Su, just how strong is this person? How terrifying! The youth also gritted his teeth and said, Elder Su, are we just going to let this matter go? Our Medicine King Dome was bullied in the streets of Thunder City. This matter cannot be brought to light. The old man shouted, Enough! Xiao Fan, being a venerable doesn't mean that you are strong. Although the Thunder Fire Sky is weak, its refining techniques are unparalleled. There are definitely many strong masters in Thunder City. This person can make you vomit blood and take your life with a thought. You should be glad that you didn't meet him on the sea. The young man's face changed, but the woman was still scared. This person's killing intent is so strong. I'm afraid he's not a good person. The old man said lightly, How many good people do you think can reach the venerable realm? 3 days later, Han Fei had completely devoured the bloodline power of Water Luster. Devouring the legendary bloodline power made Han Fei's bloodline to a higher level. The data showed, Owner, Han Fei level, 89 Half-King, the 10,000 families in the sea, 4086214 chaotic energy, 1,439 strands spiritual power, 200001 perception range, 100,000 kilometers power, 21709 waves first spiritual heritage, unknown second spiritual heritage, unknown first spiritual beast, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish level 78, second spiritual beast, Emperor Sparrow level 75, main art, void arrival level 7 of void fishing king level divine quality. No wonder it was a legendary bloodline. At this moment, Han Fei's personal comprehensive strength had been improved again. Not to mention that his ranking in the 10,000 families in the sea had increased by nearly 800,000. His soul power had exceeded 200,000, and his perception power had also jumped from 80,000 to 100,000, which surprised Han Fei very much. In the venerable realm, his soul power could exceed 200,000. How could it have such an effect? In terms of strength, The bloodline devouring this time had increased his strength by about 500 waves, which was not a small amount. After all, Han Fei had just devoured bloodlines and hadn't practiced any body refining technique. Now, looking at the information, it seemed that his potential was increasing. At this time, Han Fei felt that he had to find a great technique to cultivate as soon as possible. The 3 body refining techniques he had just obtained from Thunder City were actually not suitable for cultivation in the city. After all, one had to be refined, one had to be struck by lightning, and one had to be roasted by the sun. Han Fei needed a great technique similar to the ancient desolate war body or the former indestructible body. As long as he had the resources, he could cultivate a technique, of course. Now Han Fei needed to find another bloodline to continue devouring. These different high-grade bloodlines were indeed beneficial to him in all aspects. Han Fei glanced again. In the black mist of the demon purification pot, the information showed 10,000 families in the sea. 296202223 owner. 4086214 nearby bloodlines. Ancient Azure Dragon, Time Dragon Carp, Sea White Shell, Ancient Essence Shell, King Crab, Twin Yin-Yang Spirit Swallowing Fish recommended bloodlines. Sea White Shell, Ancient Essence Shell, King Crab. Han Fei narrowed his eyes slightly. Judging from the recommended bloodlines, the Ancient Azure Dragon, Time Dragon Carp, Little Black, and Little White didn't seem to be bloodlines that he could devour now. But fortunately, he still had the essence blood of the Sea White Shell and the Ancient Essence Shell. The bloodlines of legendary creatures were only ranked about 5 million on the 10,000 families in the sea. Now that he had devoured the essence blood of legendary creatures, his ranking was about 4 million. The Sea White Shell was an ancient exotic species. Although its level was not much better than that of legendary creatures, it was still higher. Since the demon purification pot had recommended him to devour, he didn't have to continue to devour the essence blood of other legendary creatures. So Han Fei continued to devour without hesitation. After a moment, in Han Fei's dantian, a shell phantom appeared, and the words "evolving" also appeared in the information. However, this time, the time was displayed as 508 days. Han Fei narrowed his eyes slightly. It seemed that the higher the level of the bloodline, the longer it would take to devour it. And this was only the Sea White Shell. For example, the Ancient Essence Shell and the King Crab were all powerful creatures that had become kings. After being baptized by the heavenly tribulation, their life levels were much higher than those below the venerable realm. If he wanted to devour them, it would probably take him even longer. Han Fei couldn't help frowning. 508 days was equivalent to more than a month in the outside world. If it became a few years, decades, or even hundreds of years, by then it would probably be a long time in the outside world. Han Fei couldn't help looking at his chaotic gas. He really wanted to continue to strengthen the time chain now. If it weren't for the old turtle reminding him that it would consume a lot of chaotic gas to open the sea as a king, he would have used it long ago. 7 days later, Han Fei and Yen were sitting opposite each other. At this moment, Han Fei was teaching Yen all kinds of knowledge that almost drove Xiao Sei crazy. For example, Han Fei said, "Yen, if you want to cultivate, what is the best way for you to obtain resources?" Yen replied, "Catch fish and find treasures." Han Fei shook his head. "No. It's robbery. The world of cultivators has always been the law of the jungle. If you have resources, many people will come to rob you. Good people and bad people, in the absence of bystanders, can only rely on self-restraint and nothing can be trusted. Good people sometimes become bad people. Bad people may sometimes become good people. So, don't believe in good people." Nyener asked then, "Do you rob anyone who has resources?" Han Fei smiled and said, "Of course not. Some people were weaker than you and their talent wasn't that good. Generally, you can't rob this kind of people. If you want to rob them, rob those who are talented, have a strong background, and have a powerful backer. These people, if you rob them once, can earn them back. You've only created a small obstacle in his path of cultivation. Nien'er asked, Oh, then will robbery involve a life-and-death fight? Big Brother Xiaosei said that the outside world is full of killing. Han Fei smiled and said, It depends on the situation. If you think some people are pleasing to the eye and it's not necessary to kill them, then you don't have to do it. If some people look bad at first glance, like the marauders we saw last time, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about killing that kind of person at all. The time dragon carp asked Han Fei to take care of the child and soon denied everything Xiaosei taught her. At least, Xiaosei wouldn't teach Nien'er to rob. These days, Xiaosei wanted to interrupt Han Fei more than once. However, he was glared at by Han Fei. Han Fei was about to continue teaching her when he heard the voice of the waiter outside the door. Sir, the Tianen auction will begin in an hour. Do you want to go now? Han Fei thought for a while. This auction was just for a look, so there was no need to hide it. So Han Fei slowly got up and said, Let's go, Nien'er. I'll teach you today. Chapter 17:17. It wasn't that Han Fei hadn't participated in auctions before. When he was on the Scattered Stars Island, Han Fei had also participated. At that time, he spent so much money that he almost had a nosebleed. However, the specifications of the Scattered Stars Island were very different from those of the Heavenly South 10,000 Treasure Pavilion in the Thunder City. The auction here was held underground. Whether from the 10,000 Treasure Pavilion or the 10,000 Treasure Tower, there was a direct passage to the auction house. Han Fei and the others went down directly from the 10,000 Treasure Tower through the elevator. Tianer said, Sir, because you made a big deal in the 10,000 Treasure Pavilion, the manager specially arranged a separate auction room for you, Heavenly Thunder No. 9. The compartment has an independent shielding array, which even a venerable can't detect. Of course, if you don't mind, you can also remove the array. Han Fei smiled. That's perfect. Han Fei thought to himself, no wonder it's a big city. The specifications are really different. When Han Fei arrived at the so-called private room, he found that although the room was not big, it was extremely elegant. On the table, there was tea that had already been brewed. Tianer said, Sir, this is the Heavenly Treasure Dew and Pulse Expanding Tea specially purchased from the Medicine King Heaven. Please enjoy. If you have any instructions, please call Tianer. However, Han Fei frowned slightly and said lightly, Give me a new tea set, and this pot of tea is yours. Tianer was stunned. This pot of tea is worth 100 ultra-quality spiritual stones. Why did he throw it away so casually? However, Tianer was overjoyed. These days, Han Fei and the others didn't need her at all. Therefore, they didn't give her any tips, and she didn't have any luck. Unexpectedly, when the auction began, the other party said that the tea of the Medicine King Heaven was not good enough, so she took advantage of it. At this moment, Tianer knew why the manager asked her to serve Han Fei and the others. She had just come to the 10,000 Treasure Pavilion and her strength was still too low. If she served such a customer, this pot of tea would be enough for her to enter the law enforcer realm. Maybe she could even quickly stabilize her cultivation. After a while, when a brand new tea set was served, Han Fei waved his hand, and the earth vein spring appeared in the pot. As for Nien'er's cup, Han Fei specially ordered a few drops of demonic chi essence for her. As for the remaining pot of demonic energy essence, Han Fei began to drink it by himself. Perhaps it was because of the upgrade of his bloodline, which led to the upgrade of his life level and life potential. Some of the power that the old Grand Elder had given him before was slowly being absorbed. At this rate, it would only take about a month for old Yuan to release a little more. Tianer was also shocked. Is that earth vein spring water? She felt like she was going crazy. She had been in the 10,000 Treasure Pavilion for about 5 months, and she had only seen a small bottle of the earth vein spring water. However, Han Fei drank it as tea? Was this the world of the strong? The Tianan auction house was divided into 3 levels. There were countless private rooms. Those with status were basically all on the top floor. There were a total of 36 rooms. There were 72 rooms on the middle floor. The lowest level was the main hall. In fact, there was no lack of rich people who could enter the hall. These people were here purely for the money and were here to search for treasures. A skinny elder presided over the auction, and his strength had actually reached the peak of the venerable realm. Obviously, this displayed the might of the Thunder City's myriad treasure pavilion. To be able to control such a big scene like the 10,000 treasure pavilion, there was naturally a half-monarch overseeing it. He might even be able to form a connection with the Lord of Lightning and Fire. The old man introduced, "Everyone, I'm Thunder City's myriad treasure pavilions, Zhou Qinglei. Today, I will be the host of this Southern Sky auction. There's no harm in letting everyone know that a few amazing treasures are about to appear today. Perhaps everyone will be able to feast their eyes on them." This old man was so mysterious. Immediately, someone said, "Lord Qing, can you tell us more?" The old auctioneer smiled faintly and said, "Don't worry. Even if I gave it to you, you wouldn't recognize it." Ha ha ha, many people in the hall laughed. Someone said, "You're only a half-venerable. Can you afford a sea-quelling bizarre treasure?" Someone sneered. "Forget about sea-quelling bizarre treasures. You may not be able to buy an ultra-quality divine weapon even with all your wealth." Han Fei could not see the other private rooms. He glanced at Tianer and said, "Wait for me outside. I'll call you if I need anything." Tianer, "Yes, my guest." Han Fei sat at the table, drinking and waiting. The auction began a little earlier than usual. The old man, Zhou Qinglei, said, "Everyone, we can't be slow in our actions today. The Southern Sky auction always has treasures. Attention, everyone. Next, the first item of this auction." A high platform covered with red silk appeared in front of the old man Zhou Qinglei. Someone immediately said, "It's really the usual auction style. The first item is an ultra-quality divine weapon." The corners of Zhou Qinglei's mouth curled up, and he raised his hand. In an instant, blue light shone and lightning arcs flashed. Zhou Qinglei shouted, "The first item of this auction is an ultra-quality divine weapon, the Purple Thunder Blue Fire Hook. It's an offensive weapon that can break through defense and evil. It has a strong suppression effect on undead creatures and evil chi. The starting price is 10,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones." Someone laughed and said, "It's like this every time. An ultra-quality divine weapon that should be priced at least 20,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones has to be priced at 10,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones. Isn't this place hot enough? Let me warm it up. I'll pay 20,000. Someone sneered. "What's wrong with warming it up? 10,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones at once? Are you a rich man?" 21,000, someone shouted. 22,000, 23, 000, 30, 000. Seeing this scene, Han Fei felt that he was too stingy before. Are the people in the outside world so rich? Ultra-quality spiritual stones. 20 or 30,000 at once. How much spiritual energy would that be? Clang in the end, Zhou Qinglei knocked the hammer and shouted, "Purple Thunder Blue Fire Hook. 38,000 going once, 38,000 going twice. Sold." As soon as the deal was made, the atmosphere in the hall was heated. Zhou Qinglei raised his head and glanced up. None of the people up there bid, especially the people at the top level. So far, no one had bid. It seemed that the treasure was not good enough. Zhou Qinglei waved his hand, and a purple fishing rod appeared. The second item of this auction, the Purple Dragon Void-Breaking Rod. This rod is made of blood-colored purple dragon bones, with the heavenly thunder divine iron as the hook and the long whiskers of the heavenly carp as the silk. It was forged by a 6-star refiner from Thunder City for 49 days. The starting price is 20,000. Wow! The heavenly thunder divine iron as the hook? Isn't it said that the heavenly thunder divine iron is an iron forged by the master of thunder and fire? Damn, I must get this rod. I bid 25,000. The blood-colored purple dragon is not common. This rod is good at hooking. I want it. 30,000. And this time, someone from the upper level took action. Anyway, Han Fei didn't know who it was. As soon as that person opened his mouth, he bid 50,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones, which shocked the audience and easily won. It was reasonable to say that although the fishing rod was good, as one's strength became stronger and stronger, ordinary people wouldn't use such a powerful fishing rod unless they encountered extremely powerful fishing techniques and hooking techniques. However, Han Fei had to sigh. Refiners really make money. This ability to make money seems to be faster than robbing people. Han Fei couldn't help but marvel. In the end, he was too narrow-minded. Fortunately, it had been a while since he came to the outer domain. If it were in the past, he would have been shocked by this huge amount of resources. Next, it seemed that in order to attract the guests from the upper level, this auction started with 5 ultra-quality divine weapons. In order to take care of the people in the hall, more than 20 high-quality divine weapons, heaven-level ultra-quality cultivation techniques, venerable-level cultivation techniques, top-level spiritual fruits, and so on were thrown out. Han Fei, however, felt a little impatient, and Zhou Qinglei also saw that someone on the upper level opened the array. He frowned slightly and immediately knew that the atmosphere was about to be heated. However, the old man shouted, "Everyone, the next thing is really rare to see." A small bottle appeared on the high platform. Zhou Qinglei spread his hands and looked around. There are 3 great pills in this bottle. These are the heavenly power pills refined by a half-king realm grand pharmacist of the medicine king heaven. After taking it, within 3 months, one's perception of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and affinity to the power of Tao will be doubled. Whether it is practicing cultivation techniques, great techniques, body refining, or absorbing the power of chaos, the effect will be doubled. To prevent the efficacy of the pills from being lost, they will be displayed for 10 seconds. Wow! The heavenly power pill? That's a venerable level divine medicine. Someone said, "What do you know? That's a divine medicine below the venerable level." It's said that anyone who takes one of them to reach the venerable level will definitely make a breakthrough. Someone said, but it's also very effective for venerable level cultivators. It's said that one pill can save 10 years of hard cultivation. As Zhou Qinglei opened the bottle, a golden pill floated in the air, and information popped up in Han Fei's eyes. Name Heavenly Power Pill Introduction. This is a cultivation supplementary pill refined by an alchemist with a wisp of chaotic energy and 300 kinds of precious materials. After taking it, your potential will be stimulated, and you can cultivate quickly in a short period of time. Level Venerable Level Quality, Ultra Quality, contains chaotic energy. A wisp remarks, it's not very effective for advanced venerable level cultivators and above. When Han Fei saw the last line of description, he immediately smiled and felt bored. It was useless for advanced venerable level cultivators, let alone for him. Besides, this thing seemed to be very valuable, at least 50,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones. He couldn't buy it and give it to Xiao Sei, could he? After all, Old Yuan didn't need it. Old Yuan was an Emperor Realm expert. Han Fei was not interested, and the audience was shouting crazily. Even on the top floor, most of the private rooms had already started bidding. Someone shouted, 60,000. 70,000, 75,000, 80,000, 100,000. Suddenly, someone in the private room next to Han Fei shouted in a low voice. 3 pills were directly quoted a sky-high price of 100,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones, which directly shocked the audience. A young man walked out of the private room, with a line of fire between his eyebrows and a 5-color wheel behind him. Wow! He's a 5-element disciple. What? This kind of heavenly talent also came to the Tianan auction? He has shown up. It seems that we can't compete for this heavenly power pill. Chapter 17-18. The auction of the Heavenly Ascension pill pushed the auction to its climax. In the end, it was obvious that the 5-element sect obtained the 3 heaven-reaching pills. Tianer immediately walked in and said respectfully, "Sir, what can I do for you?" Han Fei said lightly, "Tell me about the 5 elements disciples." Tianer was slightly stunned. She thought to herself, since the guest is so rich and strong, how could he not know about the 5 elements disciples? However, she was just a small waiter. Since the guest had asked, all he had to do was answer. He heard Tianer say, "The 5 elements disciples are disciples of the 5 elements heavenly palace. In the 36 Xian heavens, some of the kings of the immortal palaces personally taught their disciples. The 5 elements disciple was called General Yi, and he was at the peak of the intermediate Venerable One. It was said that it could surpass realms in battle and control the 5 elements at the same time. He excelled in both close combat and long-range combat, and was publicly acknowledged as a proud son of heaven in the 13 outer realms. Even in the 13 heavens of the inner realms, there are people who say that among those in the same realm, they can enter the top 10. How many of them are there in the Avalon of 5 elements?" Tianer said. Tianer doesn't know about this. However, there are already 3 5-element disciples that have appeared. "Yes. All right, you can go." "Yes, sir." After Tianer left, Nyener said, "Big brother, it sounds very powerful. You can actually control 5 elements. Nyener can only control time." Han Fei was amused. He said, "You can control time as well as he can control 100 elements. Nyener, you must remember that the Time Great Tao is one of the most powerful Great Taos in the world. You must not belittle yourself." "Really?" "Aha." While Han Fei was listening to Tianer's explanation, Zhou Qinglei took out another bottle of pills. Amidst the cries of surprise, someone exclaimed, "What? A 3-stage Tao pattern pill?" While Han Fei was wondering about the pill, Zhou Qinglei said with a smile, "It seems that you've all heard about it." As the name suggested, the triple Tao pattern pill was a supreme pill that had experienced the pill tribulation. Furthermore, 3 Tao patterns meant that he had experienced 3 pill tribulations. It's only 1 step away from the 4th layer. You can evaluate it for yourselves. This pill has a spirit and will not be displayed. Its main effect was to improve one's physique and strengthen one's blood, qi, and physique. It was a great help in breaking through. Everyone, please believe in the credibility of the Myriad Treasure Pavilion. The starting price of this pill is 100,000 supreme-grade spirit stones. Hiss, Han Fei gasped. Damn it, is alchemy so profitable? The starting price is 100,000? At the end of the auction, wouldn't it be worth 200,000 yuan? Spending hundreds of thousands of top-grade spirit stones for an elixir, is there a hole in my brain? However, the old turtle suddenly said, "Buy it." Han Fei immediately said, "Wait, isn't it a bit expensive?" He didn't even let me see it. The old turtle said, "This pill with 3 Tao patterns should be a 3rd-grade tribulation pill from the era of gods. It contained the laws of the heavenly Tao. The richness of the great Tao was not something that ordinary pills could compare to. Although I don't know which aspect this pill focuses on, no matter what aspect it focuses on, there's nothing wrong with buying it." "What is pill tribulation?" The old turtle said, "If you are that pill, then the pill tribulation represents the heavenly tribulation." Han Fei's eyelids twitched. "So, it's really a pill that has survived the heavenly tribulation?" The old turtle sneered. "That's nothing. Once the pill tribulation passes the 6th level, the precious pill can transform into a creature. At that time, the pill can even become a living creature. Therefore, in the era of gods, alchemists made far more money than refiners." Han Fei was speechless. Old Jiang seems to know alchemy too. But at that time, I didn't know alchemy could make so much money. If I had known that alchemy could make so much money, maybe I would have changed to alchemy. However, this time, many people in the hall turned to look at the private room upstairs. Except for these people upstairs, ordinary people couldn't afford this kind of divine pill at all. Next to Han Fei, Bo-E, the Five Elements disciple, directly took action and shouted, "Such a precious treasure only needs a small increase in the price. I bid 150,000. The audience was in an uproar. However, most people had already expected this result. Without money, they couldn't participate in the bidding of such high-end goods. As soon as Bo-E finished shouting, someone said, 160,000. A woman followed. It's boring to raise the price like this. 200,000. Don't bid below this price. Immediately afterward, Bo-E shouted again, 210,000. And at this time, in the upper private room, a restriction was directly lifted, and a familiar voice came out. 250,000. I want this 3-Dao pattern pill. It was none other than Jin Quan, the heavenly talent of the Golden Crow Heaven, who followed Bing Shui Chuling. The pupils of the Five Elements disciple shrank slightly, and he cupped his hands. I didn't expect that the Holy Maiden of the Snow God's temple would come in person. The other one must be fellow cultivator Jin Quan of the Golden Crow Heaven, right? Jin Quan smiled faintly. Thank you. Wow. The strong masters of the Golden Crow Heaven are here. Is that the Holy Maiden of the Heavenly Snow sect? Gosh, it's said that she has an engagement with the Golden Crow Heaven. With this person's status, I'm afraid he can't bid this price. However, someone also sighed. It's already 250,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones. If he wants to continue bidding, he must have the capital to bid. At this moment, Zhou Qinglei looked around and obviously sighed in his heart, but he also shouted, 250,000 once. Anyone else? 250,000 twice. Just when Zhou Qinglei was about to bid again, Han Fei said lightly, 260,000. All of a sudden, everyone's eyes turned to Heavenly Thunder Room number 9. The smile on Jin Quan's face suddenly disappeared, and he said in a cold voice, Don't you know that the Golden Crow Heaven has bid? Han Fei said leisurely, I know. You bid your price and I bid mine. Why am I bothering you? There was silence. The Five-Element disciples looked at the private room next to theirs and thought to themselves, Who is this big shot? How dare he openly challenge the strong masters of the Golden Crow Heaven? Others didn't know the identity of Jin Quan, but he knew a little. He was one of the candidates for the Palace Master of the Golden Crow Heaven. How dare ordinary people provoke such a character? Jin Quan said, 270,000. Han Fei said leisurely, 280,000. Jin Quan said, 300,000. But Han Fei was still calm. 310,000. Jin Quan suddenly stood up and looked straight at Heavenly Thunder Room number 9. Why don't we meet? Even if you want to continue bidding, you have to prove that you have the money, right? 320,000. Try adding more. Han Fei laughed. Then let's try 330,000. When he said 320,000, Jin Quan's eyes were almost spewing fire. Bing Shui Qiliang frowned. Forget it, this pill is already too expensive. However, would Jin Quan listen to her? He said, Do you have money? 330,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones are enough to buy 10 ultra-quality divine weapons. Swish. Suddenly, a 3-meter-wide broken carapace, like a door plank, shot through the auction platform from Heavenly Thunder Room number 9. Han Fei said leisurely, Is this enough? Jin Quan sneered. Do you think a carapace fragment can be worth 330,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones? It had become a contest between Jin Quan and Han Fei. Even the Five Elements sect was willing to wait and watch all this with interest. Han Fei said leisurely, Why, such a large piece of king's shell armor can't even be worth hundreds of thousands of ultra-quality spiritual stones? When Han Fei said King's shell armor, the entire auction house was in an uproar. Zhou Qinglei squatted directly in front of the carapace. This. King's shell armor? Everyone, please wait a moment. I have never seen a king's precious material. Let me call someone. No need to call, I'm here. A figure suddenly appeared in the auction house. This person was 5 meters tall, carrying a golden sledgehammer. After landing, the person flashed to the side of the shell armor. Someone was surprised. Is this Master Yu Qianxue, a 7-star refiner of Thunder City? Yes, in the entire Thunder City, there are only a few 7-star refiners, and Master Yu Qianxue is one of them. It's undoubtedly Master Yu, one of the 3 refiners of the 10,000 Treasure Pavilion. The Heavenly South 10,000 Treasure Pavilion is under Master Yu's management. Clang Yu Qianxue flicked his fingers, and the air waves rolled. Even the explorers couldn't stand still. Yu Qianxue's eyes lit up. He narrowed his eyes and his hands were shining. King's shell armor was a peerless precious material for refining a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. If it could be refined into a sea-quelling bizarre treasure, its value would never be measured by ultra-quality spiritual stones. After a while, under Jin Quan's ugly gaze, Yu Qianxue nodded. Yes, this is the shell armor of a king's shell. If I'm not mistaken, the shell is at least an ancient exotic species, which is extremely rare. Such a large piece, if converted only according to the market price, is worth at least 250,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones. After all, this was just a piece of the shell armor, and it was impossible to refine a sea-quelling bizarre treasure with only exotic materials. Therefore, to be able to offer a price of 250,000 yuan was already extremely high. Swish. Han Fei casually threw out another shell armor of the same size. As soon as these 2 pieces of shell armor were thrown away, Han Fei said leisurely, Golden Crow, do you want to continue to raise the price? It doesn't matter, you can continue. Jin Quan was dumbfounded. How can I raise the price? These 2 pieces of shell armor are worth nearly 500,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones. What if Han Fei has more? If I raise the price and Han Fei takes back the shell armor, won't I lose a lot? Immediately, Jin Quan snorted coldly. Hiding your head but showing your tail. I don't know where you found this secret realm. Let's wait and see. Facing Jin Quan's threat, Han Fei didn't care at all, nor did Yu Qianxue. He said, Fellow Taoist in room 9, are you selling this king's shell armor? Han Fei nodded. Yes. Yu Qianxue was immediately overjoyed. In that case, the Heavenly South 10,000 Treasure Pavilion can accept 500,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones. It is absolutely worth this market price. What do you think, fellow Taoist? Han Fei smiled lightly. Okay. Han Fei was happy to make more money. Once he found a body refining technique, the consumption of resources would definitely not be small. Besides, he still had a pile of such shell fragments. However, the moment Han Fei took out the king's shell armor, Jin Quan, the 5 Elements disciples, and even some others had already begun to stare at room 9. The 3rd chapter. Please vote for me. 3 chapters a day is already very fast. After all, there are 10,000 chapters a day. This book has been published for a year and a half, and it already has 2 million words. Please support me. End of this chapter. Chapter 17-19. In fact, Han Fei didn't care about what these people thought. Would these people target him? If he wanted to be targeted, then so be it. The people present today were all rich men. Hundreds of thousands of ultra-quality spiritual stones were like a drizzle to them. If they didn't target him, how could he make money? In the next auction, 7 or 8 ultra-quality divine weapons were taken out. After that, there was nothing else. After all, the level of this auction was not high. At this time, the enthusiasm of the auction had subsided, and people had left one after another. The auction house was not stupid. There weren't many people left, so they wouldn't take out any good things. After all, the more people there were, the easier it was to drive up the price. If they wanted to make money, they could only wait until the next time. When everyone had more money, they would come and harvest another wave of leek. Han Fei drank up the earth-veined spring water in one gulp and held Nian Er's hand. Let's go. Let's go back. Xiao Sei whispered, Master Han Fei, if we go out now, I'm afraid. Han Fei grinned. Don't worry. These few fish can't eat me. Less than half an hour later, someone came to Jin Quan and whispered, Master, this person's name is unknown. He lives in the southern half of the top floor of the 10,000 treasure tower. His identity should not be weak. This person is accompanied by a 7 or 8-year-old little girl and an intermediate venerable. It's him? Jin Quan's pupils shrank slightly. He happened to meet a person who came out with a little girl. That person's condescending aura really made him very unhappy. Jin Quan sneered and put on a cold smile. Inform 8th brother to be on standby. Yes, master. Jin Quan secretly laughed. Boy, how dare you ruin the relationship between me and Chu Ling? Who will die if you don't? It's a pity that all your king-grade materials are going to be mine. Then, Jin Quan continued, Are you sure you can't find out the identity of this person? The man nodded. Young master, I only know that this person seems to come from Thunderfire Market Island. As for why he is there and what his background is, I don't know anything. Jin Quan nodded slightly. Change the direction of the investigation. Look at the inner sea. Have any big ships come to Thunderfire Sky recently? If so, which immortal palace, what level? Find out. The other side. The 5 Elements disciple Bo Yi was also listening to someone's report. He muttered, with a little girl? Unknown origin? At this moment, Han Fei was playing with a small bottle. This was the triple Dao pattern pill. To see what kind of pill was worth such a high price, Han Fei opened the bottle without hesitation. Buzz. The moment the bottle was opened, the fragrance of the medicine filled the entire room. Han Fei felt refreshed from head to toe, and his body felt extremely comfortable just by smelling the fragrance of the medicine. Looking at the elixir pill, it was light red in color. Apart from a strange quadrangular symbol, there were also 3 strange Dao patterns on the elixir pill. A string of information emerged in Han Fei's eyes. Name 3rd grade tribulation pill introduction. This is a supreme grade pill refined by an alchemist to pass the heavenly tribulation. This pill contains a great amount of energy and the power of the great Tao. It is helpful in breaking through the cultivation barrier and quickly increasing one's strength. If taken during a heavenly tribulation, it might be able to withstand a heavenly tribulation. Level, venerable level, quality. Superb, contains chaotic energy 8 wisps, remarks, it has a miraculous effect on breakthroughs and heavenly tribulations. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. This thing is awesome. It can even resist a heavenly tribulation? It seems a bit wasteful to use it now. I'd better keep it. I don't need it now. Dumb, dear customer. Han Fei put away the 3rd grade tribulation pill and responded casually, Come in. The next moment, the manager of the Myriad Treasure Pavilion walked in with Tian'er with a smile. As soon as he came in, the manager felt something was wrong. The fragrance of medicine was amazing here. It seemed that Han Fei was looking at the triple Dao pattern pill just now. Tian'er, on the other hand, felt dizzy at that moment. She was in a daze. Han Fei pointed casually. You're about to make a breakthrough. Don't force yourself. Thank you for your magnanimity, dear customer. Then the manager spoke to Tian'er via voice transmission. The girl sat cross-legged on the ground and began to make a breakthrough. The manager said, Dear customer, I'm here to bring you ultra-quality spiritual stones. The 2 king shell armors you paid earlier and the remaining 170,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones are all here. In addition, Master Yu Qianshui said that after the auction, all the big ships will set sail and begin to return one after another. If you need, the Myriad Treasure Pavilion can also arrange a route for you to ensure your safety. Han Fei thought to himself, I don't need anyone to protect me. Han Fei said, fine. I just want to know, how many ships from the Thunderfire Heaven are going to the inner domain? Which immortal palaces are they going to? The manager thought to himself, Han Fei is indeed from the inner domain. He's going to set off for the inner domain without thinking. The manager immediately said, Dear customer, after all, this is the Tianen auction, not a large auction. Therefore, there are not many ships from the inner domain coming this time. At present, there are only ships from the Thunderfire Heaven going to the Medicine King Heaven and the Golden Crow Heaven. Han Fei couldn't help asking, Is there a ship from the Thunderfire Heaven to the Glass Heaven? The manager couldn't help but be surprised. Glass Heaven? Guessed, there are very few ships from the Glass Heaven, the Immeasurable Heaven, the Sword God, and the Grand Mystery Heaven. They rarely come to the outer domain. However, if you go to the Medicine King Heaven or the Golden Crow Heaven, it's a different story. What the manager was implying was that if you wanted to go to these families, you had to go to the inner domain first. Because the immortal palaces in the Glass Heaven only seemed to have dealings with the immortal palaces in the inner domain. Just as Han Fei was considering whether he should go to the Medicine King Heaven first and go through the motions, suddenly, Han Fei felt Snowmorn move slightly. Han Fei immediately looked at the door and then said to the manager, Okay, I've learned about this. As for where to go, if necessary, I'll ask this little girl Tianer to find you. Okay, dear customer. The manager also seemed to notice Han Fei's eyes and guessed that someone must have come. However, he didn't release his perception to investigate. The Myriad Treasure Pavilion only did business, and they didn't participate in anything about their customers. As if for Han Fei's convenience, the manager grabbed Tianer and escaped through the void. After the manager left, Han Fei hooked his finger and opened the door, only to see Bingxue Qiliang coming to his residence alone. Han Fei smiled. Please come in. Nian said, Beautiful sister. Bingxue Qiliang smiled at the girl shyly. You will be very beautiful when you grow up. After Bingxue Qiliang came in, Han Fei extended his hand and waved his hand on the table, and a green liquid appeared in a cup. Earth vein spring water? Han Fei smiled. I thought you wouldn't come. I didn't expect that you would come when I was about to leave. Bingxue Qiliang asked, May I know your name, fellow Taoist? Han Fei smiled. My name is Fan Datong. I'm a wandering refiner, Fan Datong. Bingxue Qiliang was lost for words. Why is there such a name? Also, I have to believe that you are a wandering refiner. However, it was meaningless to expose Han Fei at this moment. So, whatever Han Fei said was the truth. Bingxue Qiliang said, Fellow Taoist, you said in a voice transmission that you might be able to cure Qiliang's illness. Is it true? Han Fei glanced at the teacup before Bingxue Qiliang, and then picked up his own cup and had a sip. How many years do you have left to live? Normally, she wouldn't tell such a private thing to an outsider. However, Han Fei seemed to know her illness very well, so she didn't keep it a secret. The woman said, I have about 300 years, if my illness doesn't get worse. Han Fei frowned and suppressed the shivering Snowmorn in Forge the Universe, thinking, if my guess is correct, the last soul of Bingxue Qiliang should be related to Snowmorn. In Snowmorn, it was either the human-shaped soul that was absorbed by him, or the secrets of Snowmorn itself. Han Fei said, How much power does the holy girl of the Snow God's temple have? Bingxue Qiliang was stunned. What does he mean? Han Fei said, You have to pay a lot to cure your illness. Bingxue Qiliang was shocked. What? As long as you can cure me, I can get whatever it is for you. Han Fei smiled casually. Don't be so sure yet. At least, you owe me a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. Huh. Bingxue Qiliang was surprised, but then she said, If you can cure me, I can find a way to give you a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. Han Fei waved his hand, and Snowmorn floated in midair. Bingxue Chilling rose abruptly with a rare blush on her face, and Snowmorn approached her too. Bingxue Chilling looked at Han Fei in shock. When she touched Snowmorn, she felt completely different from the weak and sickly feeling she had before. At this moment, Bingxue Chilling realized what Han Fei meant when he said that she owed him at least a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. So, his sea-quelling bizarre treasure could cure her illness. Then, she couldn't let him lose a sea-quelling bizarre treasure for nothing, could she? Also, this sea-quelling bizarre treasure seemed to be very special to her. She had a feeling that she had seen this sword somewhere before. It was a weird feeling. It was as if she felt a calling, as if something was calling out to her. She had a feeling that if the sea-quelling bizarre treasure recognized her as its master, her illness might be cured immediately. Swoosh! Han Fei extended his hand and forcibly took back Snowmorn. In any case, it was his sword. Back then, he almost sucked himself to death for this thing. How could he give it away for nothing? Putting away Snowmorn, Han Fei asked, "How much do you think it's worth?" Chapter 1720. In Bingxue Chuling's eyes, Han Fei was a mysterious and powerful big shot. Not to mention that his strength had reached the half-king level. The fact that he could take out the king's shell armor and the sea-quelling bizarre treasure showed that he was not an ordinary person. The reason why Bingxue Chuling came to see Han Fei was to inform him that many people already knew that he was the guest in room 9 of the Sky Thunder at the auction. As for Han Fei's treatment, Bingxue Chuling didn't have much hope. After all, even the Pill King could not save her. How could an ordinary person save her? But at this moment, Bingxue Chuling believed it because she saw hope. Bingxue Chuling said, "The Snow God's Temple has 3 sea-quelling bizarre treasures. Other than my master's scepter of ice and snow crown, I also have an ice and snow lotus. Cultivating on this lotus seat would allow one to calm their mind and achieve twice the results with half the effort. Over time, the lotus throne will also faintly refine the body and even increase one's resistance to extreme cold." Han Fei tilted his head and asked, "What level?" "Icy Snow Early Spirit, middle grade." Han Fei was intrigued. This was indeed a level higher than Snowmorn. Something that could improve one's cultivation should be something good. This thing was worth it. Han Fei said, "What else?" "Although my sword is only a low-grade one, it can save your life. This is the only one in the world." Bingxue Chuling pondered for a long time and said, "I have a 3rd-layer Dao pattern fate pill that can extend your lifespan by 500 years. Han Fei thought to himself, "I'm still young. Why do I need that stuff?" So Han Fei shook his head and said, "What I drink is earth-veined spring water. Why would I need that?" Bingxue Chuling said, "Maybe you won't need it, but it's a life-prolonging pill. 36 Profound Heavens is also an extremely rare item. What do you need? I can change it for you." Han Fei thought for a moment. What he needed now were treasures that contained energy and chaotic energy, as well as powerful body refining technique. Void fishing was a cultivation technique, which was equivalent to a cultivation technique. It would only improve one's realm but not his physique. The path of body tempering had always been his focus, and he could not abandon it. Chaos Chi was actually relatively expensive and hard to come by. However, he could absorb it from the bodies of venerable realm great demons. If he were to seek the Tao of a half-monarch realm great demon, how much would he have to absorb? Therefore, Han Fei didn't need to worry. Han Fei said, "I need ultimate treasures that contain extremely high energy and venerable level body refining technique. How many can you provide?" Bingxue Chuling said, "Because the Bingxue Heaven isn't famous for body refinement, there are only 2 venerable level body refinement arts. However, if I use fate pills to trade, given some time, I should be able to find a few." Han Fei said with a smile, "Then you'd better hurry up. I don't have much time." Bingxue Chuling nodded. "All right, I'll arrange for someone to take care of this later. As for supreme treasures that contained energy, they were usually spirit fruit. On the other hand, it was definitely the flower palace from the outer territories that had the most spirit fruit. 100,000 energy spirit fruits is the limit of what I can call upon. Any more and it will definitely attract the attention of others, and it may very well affect the transaction. Han Fei grinned. Deal. Bingxue Chu Ling said, it might take some time to prepare these. If fellow Taoist doesn't mind, you can follow my ship to the world of ice and snow for a while. Han Fei pondered for a moment. The 10,000 treasure pavilion could only arrange for him to go to the Golden Crow Heaven and the Medicine King Heaven, so he might as well go to the Ice and Snow Heaven. Han Fei pretended to hesitate and said, is there a big ship to the glass sky in the ice and snow sky? After this is done, I need to make a trip to the glaze sky. Glass sky? Bingxue Chuling said, the location of the glaze sky and the greater darkness sky has always been difficult to find in the inner region. Even in the 13 heavens of the inner region, it was not easy to go to the glaze heaven and the greater darkness heaven. My icy snow sky does not have a route to glaze sky, but Glaze, Immeasurable, Sword God, and Tai Xian have formed an alliance. If he went to the Immeasurable Heaven or the Sword God Palace, he might be able to find a way to go to the Glaze Heaven. Our Ice Snow Sky does have a flight route to Sword God Palace. Sword God Palace? Han Fei was briefly stunned. Damn it. Is it so troublesome to find a way in the chaotic Azure Sea? Taishan Heaven contained all the ancient books in the world, so it was fine that it was hard for them to find them. But what the hell is this glaze sky? Why is it so hard to find? Han Fei thought of something. Okay, then help me arrange a big ship to the Sword God Palace. Han Fei felt that he had made a lot of money this time. Even if he couldn't find the greater darkness sky in a short time, he could still have many body refining technique. By then, with the demon purification pot's fusion, he might be able to create an ancient strange technique. However, Bingxue Chuling said, I will arrange our deal. But you are not in a good situation now, fellow Taoists. After all, the 10,000 treasure pavilion is just an auction house. They don't have the ability to isolate all the news and hide you. So, I'm afraid that someone has found out that you took action in Room 9 of the Heavenly Thunder. Han Fei grinned. I'll take care of my own business. You just need to prepare your ship to the icy snow sky, and I will come. Han Fei stayed in the Thunderfire sky for a very short time, but he had gained a lot. In fact, Han Fei felt that it was because he knew too little about the outside world. The income in the Thunderfire sky was so rich, so was the other immortal palaces. Therefore, Han Fei didn't care where he stayed. He had always been the type to eat wherever he went. If he stayed in one place for a long time, he might attract the attention of the enemy's top masters because he was too high profile. For example, would the Lord of Thunder and Fire come to him when he found out that he had the King Shell armor? That was a material for refining sea-quelling bizarre treasures. And sea-quelling bizarre treasures were rare resources in the entire chaotic Azure Sea. The next day, Han Fei controlled the big ship alone and entered a common route. In the chaotic Azure Sea, the common route was the most common route. This kind of common route could be bought with money. It couldn't be more common. Usually, the common route didn't belong to any force, so the route was unremarkable and lacked opportunities. Generally speaking, if there was a large transaction of materials, few people would take the common route above board. Even if there were some, they would do it carefully or with the protection of strong masters. For ordinary pirates, they liked this kind of common route the most. However, for large pirate groups, the risks of robbing a common route were far greater than the benefit. After all, most of the pirates who took the common route didn't have much money. And how many people would get a share of the money for a pirate ship? And those who dared to take the common route were basically the kind of people who couldn't afford to lose. Even the pirates couldn't guarantee that they would win, right? If they were to be destroyed by the enemy, Then they would lose both their men and their wealth. They would suffer a double loss. Therefore, big pirates generally disdained to rob this kind of common route. They usually robbed private, exclusive routes. When Han Fei set foot on a common route to the Wind-Slasher Sky alone, he immediately attracted many people's attention. Why did he choose the Wind-Slasher Sky? That was because this route could reach the route of the Ice and Snow Sky if he deviated slightly. And when Bingxue Chuling traded with Han Fei, she had already given him the route of the Ice and Snow Sky. Although the exclusive route was, in a sense, a common route, there were more strong masters on this route. However, there were even more experts on this route. If something were to happen, they might even be able to find a king-tier expert to help them. But this didn't mean that the exclusive route was mysterious. It was just safer than the ordinary common route. In the evening, on the sea, violent energy was raging. From the perspective of the environment, the outer domain was actually not very good. Han Fei was continuing to modify the Avenger. He had retempered about 2/3 of it before, and there was still some left to be improved. This place was already very far from the thunder-fire sky. On the extremely vast sea, although it was a common route, the distance between ships was still very far. After all, a big ship was just a drop in the ocean on the sea, extremely difficult to find. However, under such circumstances, a ship appeared near Han Fei's Avenger. At this moment, the Avenger hadn't hung up its flag yet. Therefore, in the eyes of others, it was just a big black ship. Oh no, to be precise, it was a big black ship. There was still a part that Han Fei hadn't finished modifying. Nian had been digesting the power in the past 2 days. Nian had been a peak-level law enforcer for a long time. In terms of comprehensive power, Nian had completely adapted to it. And after Han Fei's long education and Xiao Sei's explanation, Nian had a general understanding of the world. In addition, Han Fei had opened the tribulation pill yesterday, which seemed to have aroused Nian-er's vitality. In a few months, Nian-er should need to transcend the tribulation and make a breakthrough. Suddenly, Xiao Sei's face changed slightly. Not good, a ship is coming. Han Fei smiled. Take Nian-er to play with Earth 9. Han Fei opened the ship array and the sea-quelling painting at the same time. The mountain and river phantom wrapped Xiao Sei and Nian-er and sent them into the sea-quelling painting. Han Fei wasn't worried at all, but muttered, "This array is quite complicated. It's actually refined on the core of an ultra-quality divine weapon, using the core to drive the array, but it's still a bit weak. It seems that I have to refine it myself another day." At this moment, the void opened, and a big ship broke through the void and came. When a big ship arrived, 2 other big ships came. One of them still had a big flag, which was the symbol of the Medicine King Heaven. Jin Quan stood on the deck, facing Han Fei directly. "Boy, I was almost fooled by you. I thought you were a top heavenly talent from the Grand Pure Palace, the Chaos Palace, and the Wuji Palace. I didn't expect you to be nothing. You want to leave the thunder fire heaven like this? I'm afraid you're dreaming, right?" With that, Jin Quan looked at the other 2 big ships and couldn't help but say, "What a coincidence. If I don't come out, you don't come out." "What do you mean?" On the big ship with the 5 Elements flag, the 5 Elements disciple, Bo-E, stood out and said, "Brother Jin, this person has a lot of treasures on him. Everyone who sees him should have a share, right?" On the other side was the young man from the Medicine King Heaven that Han Fei met last time. At this moment, he looked at Han Fei with a sneer. "I know you're going to die, but that child is innocent. You can give her to me." The young man said, "You too, you can take all the treasures on this person. The Medicine King Heaven only wants the little girl next to this person." Because Han Fei's ship was open, they couldn't directly see through the Avenger, so they naturally didn't know that Nian-er was long gone. "Hee, are you done?" At this time, Han Fei smiled faintly. "If you're done, is it my turn to speak?" The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up. "Welcome to the robbery. Chapter 1721. Han Fei didn't know how often he robbed in the chaotic vast sea. He also didn't know how ferocious the pirates here were. However, when it came to robbing, Han Fei was really a veteran. Originally, Han Fei didn't expect to be able to completely hide his whereabouts. As a result, he managed to catch 3 big fishes with just one attempt. However, to Han Fei's surprise, the Medicine King Heaven also participated in this robbery. Although it wasn't a robbery, it wanted to rob people? Their nature wasn't much better. Han Fei's contempt made everyone feel like they had been fooled. The image that Han Fei created for everyone in the thunder-fire sky was different. The impression he left on Jin Quan was that he might be a genius disciple of the inner domain, protected by experts. The impression he gave the 5 Elements sect disciples was the same. Moreover, Han Fei was filthy rich. Therefore, after determining that Han Fei wasn't from the inner domain and didn't seem to have a half-king beside him, Bo-e thought again and decided to make a trip. As for the Medicine King Heaven, he had learned of the actions of the Golden Crow Heaven and the Avalon of 5 Elements and felt that Han Fei definitely couldn't escape this calamity. Therefore, he only came to ask the Golden Crow Heaven and the Avalon of 5 Elements to give him face. Shockingly, 2 half-monarch realm experts appeared beside Jin Quan. The 2 looked around and shook their heads slightly. We didn't find any ambush, nor did we find any unusual movements on that ship. Jin Quan laughed. Kid, you're still pretending when you're about to die. Do you think I'm scared? Take him down. On the Avalon of 5 Elements side, a half-king realm expert also appeared behind Bo-e. He smiled faintly. It's not good to have a conflict with the Golden Crow Heaven, so I'll help. When the time comes, at least we can rob his ship. It's not good for the Golden Crow Heaven to eat alone, so they have to give up some. The only one who was prepared to watch the show was the young man from the Medicine King Heaven. However, just as these people were about to make a move, they saw Han Fei wave his hand. It was as if a flawless coat on the Avenger was torn apart. On the huge black sail, there was the logo of the skeleton pirate. At the top of the mast, a pirate skull flag impressively appeared. Today is the first robbery of the Avenger pirates. We need to find some people to sacrifice to the flag. You've come at the right time. When the battle began, the young man from the Medicine Kingdom, who was watching from the sidelines, was dumbfounded. The Avengers? This man was actually a pirate? Jin Quan and Banyi were also stunned. This guy was actually a pirate? However, both of them had an idea. On their side, the Golden Crow Avalon alone had 2 demi-kings, and the Avalon of 5 Elements had 1 more. As for Jin Quan and him, both of them could be said to be experts at the peak of the Venerable Realm. With 3.5 monarchs holding down the fort, as long as a monarch didn't come, who could shake them? Even though Han Fei was a pirate, he had never heard of the Avengers. Who would care about them? Brother Jin, he shouted, we must finish this battle quickly. It won't be a good thing if this person has an ambush. The half-king realm expert beside Jin Quan also said, 7th young master, we will finish the battle within 10 breaths and quickly defeat him. I'm just afraid that behind this person is one of the top 10 pirate group. That will be troublesome. Jin Quan snorted, make your move. Quickly take him down for me. Buzz, at that moment, Han Fei's momentum rose to its peak. The power of the great Tao revolved, sweeping through the sky and sea with incomparable power. Swish, Han Fei appeared quietly at a speed that even the 3 half-king realm experts couldn't catch up with. A spear mark instantly broke through the void, and the speed was so fast that the 3 half-king realm experts could barely react, but they had no time to escape. On the side of the Golden Crow Heaven, one of the half-king realm experts was pierced through by Han Fei with 1 blow. His whole body exploded. At that moment, the people of the 3 divine palaces were all dumbfounded. What kind of godlike power is this? A half-king realm expert couldn't even withstand the power of a spear strike? Another half-king realm expert of the Golden Crow Heaven shouted, "Not good, young master, run quickly. This person is a monarch." Everyone. At that moment, Jin Quan, Bo Yi, and Xiao Fan of the Medicine King Heaven were all dumbfounded. F***ck, what kind of joke is this? A monarch pretending to be a junior venerable? A monarch going to participate in such an ordinary auction? Does a monarch need to use himself as bait to deceive them? However, since the half-king realm expert had already spoken, he must have his reasons. Therefore, Jin Quan, Bo Yi, and the others flew back without hesitation. Since you're here, why do you still want to leave? Swish, swish, swish in the void, the projections of two half-king realm experts descended and directly stopped two of them. Han Fei grabbed the strange blue power and slashed the void. With a boom, heavy rain cracks appeared in the sky, and a rain of blood fell. A half-king realm expert was at least half a step into the monarch realm. If he died, there would naturally be some reaction. Jin Quan was shocked. A projection of a monarch? How is that possible? How can he be a monarch? On the other side, Xiao Fan of the Medicine King Heaven saw that a half-king realm expert didn't even have a chance to be reborn from a single drop of blood. Damn, how can I fight him? He already believed that this was definitely a monarch. One move and he could kill a half-king realm expert. What could be more visually shocking than this? Han Fei's projection of a half-king realm expert made Xiao Fan wet his pants. The Medicine King Heaven was not the kind of person who was particularly good at fighting. Generally speaking, the Golden Crow Heaven and the Avalon of 5 elements would certainly give him face. Therefore, this time, he came alone. He wanted to bring Yen back and make a great contribution. However, when Han Fei's projection of a half-king realm expert blocked in front of the big ship and punched horizontally, the ship formation rumbled and couldn't move at all. He was frightened. The only one who could escape was by E of the Avalon of 5 elements. This person was only at the peak of the intermediate venerable realm. Even if he came out, he had always been cautious. The moment Han Fei killed the half-king realm expert in one move, he had already begun to move through the void. Fortunately, he brought a half-king realm expert to block Han Fei's projection. Otherwise, he would have died without a doubt. The big ship of the Avalon of 5 elements ran away, but Han Fei didn't care. If no one went to publicize the strength of the Avenger, then what was the point of this battle? Speaking of which, the half-king realm expert from the Avalon of 5 elements, with the 5 elements reversed and all kinds of great techniques, couldn't shake Han Fei and was overwhelmingly crushed. Han Fei, on the other hand, directly poked a hole in the Golden Crow Heaven's ship formation with a knock on the heavenly gate. Big Dipper! Han Fei appeared on the Golden Crow Heaven's ship again. He didn't need to do anything at all. His projection descended, and the remaining advanced venerable on the ship had nowhere to escape. Han Fei held the time sword in his hand and slashed the sky. In just 3 seconds, the old Golden Crow Heaven Half-King was directly cut in half by Han Fei. His soul was locked by Han Fei with the void lines, and there was nowhere to escape. Jin Quan exclaimed, "Fellow Taoist, don't go too far. I'm valuable. I'm one of the 7 great king candidates of the Golden Crow Heaven. I'm very valuable." Puff Han Fei slashed out with his knife and the void lines clenched. He thought that Jin Quan wouldn't even have the chance to be reborn from a single drop of blood and would die on the spot in an instant. However, to Han Fei's surprise, 7 giant flame shields appeared on the surface of Jin Quan's body and actually blocked his attack, which was comparable to a king's. Although his whole body was dripping with blood and his bones were broken, he had indeed blocked it. Han Fei looked at him with great interest. However, the next moment, the shield actually triggered the sun essence fire, and 6 raging pillars of fire struck down in a row, attempting to surround Han Fei and create an opportunity for him to escape. But unfortunately, no matter how talented this Jin Quan was, he was now facing the real power of a king. These people had no idea that within 10 seconds, Han Fei was a king in terms of power. Fighting with Han Fei during this period? It was tantamount to smashing an egg against a rock, courting death. Under Jin Quan's gaze, Han Fei actually opened his mouth and swallowed the sun essence fire. In the end, under Han Fei's slash, the so-called palace lord candidate was beheaded. Han Fei wantonly devoured the souls and vitality of these people. Boom! Boom! Even in the chaotic Azure Sea, the more experts that died, the bigger the changes in the weather would be. 2 half-kings, a peak venerable and an advanced venerable, died in succession, causing cracks to appear in the great Tao in the sky and a rain of blood poured down. However, the matter was far from over. The people of the Golden Crow Heaven were completely annihilated, and the only remaining half-king from the Avalon of 5 elements detonated a supreme-grade divine weapon in an attempt to escape. The result was obvious. The void was restricted by Han Fei, and this person was also killed on the spot. At this point, of the 3 major forces, only the Medicine King Heaven was left. Han Fei strolled through the void, feeling the power of the souls he had devoured. He held the sun-moon shell in his hand and projected back. Seeing that Xiao Fan still wanted to use void teleportation, Han Fei couldn't help but sneer. Idiot, you couldn't escape at the beginning, and now you don't even have a half-king at home. Do you still think you can escape? Puff! The king's attack directly pierced through the Medicine King Heaven's ship formation. Han Fei's figure flashed and directly appeared on the large ship. One of Xiao Fan's middle-level venerable subordinates couldn't even move under Han Fei's pressure. Plop! The dignified Medicine King Heaven's genius actually sat on the ground at this moment. Seeing this person's appearance, Han Fei couldn't help but laugh. I really wonder if you ate medicine to reach the intermediate venerable realm? Remember I told you before, if this was the sea, you would have died long ago. How dare you come to take people away? Xiao Fan hurriedly said, My lord, Lord King, I didn't mean to harm anyone, didn't mean, puff! Han Fei pointed a finger at the void and stabbed it directly between Xiao Fan's eyebrows. The heavenly god stab directly pierced through his 7 orifices and caused his divine soul to collapse. Don't kill me, Chilla! Xiao Fan, in his confusion, actually threw a dark green poisonous substance at Han Fei. Han Fei turned into a shadow, took a few steps back, and reached out to touch a trace of the poisonous mist. The poisonous substance was escaping into Han Fei's body and was being devoured by his blood. TSK, a heavenly talent of the Medicine King Heaven actually uses poison? Then what's the difference between you and the 10,000 poison heaven? Han Fei held the embroidery needle and stabbed it 100 times in a row, directly destroying Xiao Fan's spiritual heritage, destroying his dantian, and causing his cultivation level to plummet. However, Han Fei didn't kill this person. He just grabbed Xiao Fan's sun-moon shell, then looked at another intermediate venerable, and faintly smiled. You can take him back. When you go back, remember to tell the others that I am the Lord of Vengeance, Han Fei, the captain of the Avengers. After the Medicine King Heaven's ship fled crazily, the old turtle said, Aren't you afraid of causing hatred? Why did you let him go? Han Fei disdainfully said, In order to cover up his actions, the 5-element disciple may not necessarily announce the deeds of the Avenger to the public. However, this person from the Medicine King Heaven probably hates me to the extreme and will definitely publicize the existence of the Avenger. Today, I killed 3 demi-kings and made a name for myself. How can no one publicize it? The old turtle was speechless. He thought to himself, that little guy from the Medicine King Heaven is really pitiful. Why didn't you provoke anyone? Why did you have to provoke the big demon Han Fei? Chapter 1722. History had proved countless times that the law of the jungle was the law of survival in the cultivation world. Han Fei had only planned to catch 1 fish, but he caught 3 at once. Han Fei rummaged through the sun-moon shells he had looted. There were 3 half-king realm sun-moon shells, which contained many precious materials. There were not many spiritual fruits and spiritual springs because they basically didn't rely on these now. Most of them were ultra-quality spiritual stones. Because in the chaotic ocean, ultra-quality spiritual stones were the most convenient for transactions between venerable realm experts. He didn't know where these ultra-quality spiritual stones came from. However, they just had them. Others used ultra-quality spiritual stones as money, but Han Fei used them as resources for cultivation. Han Fei thought to himself, "It's not that I'm not smart enough, but that these people don't recognize the usefulness of ultra-quality spiritual stones at all. Or in other words, their strength had reached the limit, and it was useless to use ultra-quality spiritual stones." Han Fei scanned through the 3 half-king level cultivators. On average, each of them was worth more than 1,000,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones if they were sold in total. Han Fei felt that he had become a nouveau riche in an instant. In the sun-moon shell of the Golden Spring, Han Fei made a new discovery. In addition to the ultra-quality divine weapons, 420,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones, there was even a third-grade tribulation pill. Han Fei was overjoyed. This pill alone was worth a lot. He had made a fortune this time. Just when Han Fei was about to look at Xiao Fan's sun-moon shell, he glanced at it and saw a crystal gourd in the sun-moon shell of the Golden Spring. There seemed to be something powerful there, and it was shining slightly. Han Fei reached out and grabbed the gourd in his hand. With a pop, Han Fei opened the stopper of the gourd. Suddenly, a golden pillar of fire rose into the sky, and there were bird cries. The next moment, a drop of golden blood rose into the air and fled. How could Han Fei let this treasure run away? Han Fei stretched out his hand and grabbed the drop of golden blood, and information appeared in his eyes. Name Golden Crow Divine Blood Introduction. The essence blood of the Golden Crow, a divine beast, contains extremely powerful power. Don't take it easily, or you will be devoured by the Golden Crow Divine Blood. Level Divine Quality Ultra Quality, contains chaotic energy greater than 303 strands. Remarks contains extremely powerful power. Those below the sea expansion realm are vulnerable to the backlash and will explode. Han Fei's heart trembled. This thing is awesome. However, this was an unexpected surprise. To put it bluntly, the value of this drop of blood essence was comparable to his entire fortune. The old turtle was also shocked. Could this be the blood of gods? No, there's the sound of birds chirping. I'm afraid it's the blood of a divine beast. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. What's the difference between the blood of gods and the blood of divine beasts? The old turtle said, in essence, there's no difference. After all, the blood of a god was of a higher grade than the blood of a divine beast. After all, only when a divine beast matured would it have the chance to become a god. However, no matter what, this drop of blood is definitely not weaker than the battle god emperor blood that you devoured last time. Gulp. Han Fei licked his lips, as expected of one of the candidates for the palace master. This amount of luck was truly incredible to be able to obtain a treasure of this level. Unfortunately, it was now his turn to benefit. Putting away the Golden Crow Divine Blood, Han Fei looked at Xiao Fan's sun-moon shell again. However, Han Fei was greatly disappointed by what he saw. Look, this was the difference. This Xiao Fan was obviously raised by a stepmother. Except for 20,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones and an ultra-quality divine weapon, he had nothing else. Oh, there were also dozens of bottles of body-polishing pills and divine transcendence pills. Han Fei took a look. Only the divine transcendence pills were better. The strongest effect was only suitable for beginner venerables or intermediate venerables. This thing could be kept for now. When the time came, he could give it to Ing-Er. As for Nien-Er, she probably didn't need it. Nien-Er's growth didn't need pills at all. In a way, she had already become a venerable. Now, she just needed to get in touch with the human world, gain some social experience, and lay a solid foundation. Then she could continue to make breakthroughs. After quickly looking through these resources, Han Fei found that there were as many as 1.98 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. Assuming that each ultra-quality spiritual stone contained only 800,000 points of spiritual energy, this was an astronomical number. Suddenly, Han Fei subconsciously counted with his fingers. It seemed that danger was coming. After all, this was a common route. If there was such a big movement all of a sudden, someone would probably notice it. Since he got the treasures, he'd better run away first. Then Han Fei directly dived into the turbulent sea that was not on the route. In this place that was not on the route, Han Fei held the nautical panorama and went directly to the big ship of Ice Snow Chu Ling. About half an hour after Han Fei left, swish, 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 in the void, the phantoms of several big ships appeared. There was also a burly man holding a dark gold sledgehammer standing in this void. This man casually scooped up some broken corpses. His face changed. What an arrogant method! Killing people and robbing treasures, even disdaining to destroy the corpses. The Sun Moon Shell and the big ship of Golden Crow Heaven have been robbed. What is the background of the Avenger? Behind the man, a half-king realm Grand Venerable said, "Thunder Lord, this person defeated 3 half-kings alone. If you count Jin Quan, he can be counted as 4 half-kings. Such a person. Could he be?" This burly man was the Lord of Thunder and Fire. The first thing the 5-element disciple did after escaping was to inform the Lord of Thunder about the pirate. However, he reversed the truth and said that Han Fei took the initiative to rob them. The Lord of Thunder and Fire said lightly, "It is indeed possible that he is an unborn king. But I'm confused. According to the 5-element disciple, this person is the young man who sold 2 pieces of king shell armor at the Tianan auction. Doesn't that mean that the Thunder Fire Heaven will be in trouble?" Humph. Then the Lord of Thunder and Fire said, "A group of juniors, obviously they snatched the treasure first, but now they want to reverse the truth. They hit a stone themselves. No wonder the Thunder Fire Heaven doesn't recognize them. Go and warn the 5-element disciple. Also, come with me to see that little guy from the Medicine King Heaven. Let's see what he has to say." 2 days later. Because Ice Snow Chu Ling needed to cultivate and wait for Jin Quan and the others, the Snow Wind didn't teleport but anchored and waited halfway. Therefore, the Snow Wind did not teleport but anchored and waited halfway. "Lady Chu Ling, something bad has happened, Holy Maiden, a half-king realm king has come to escort." Creak, the cabin door opened and Ice Snow Chu Ling appeared on the deck in a snow-white cloak. When she saw a hammer-carrying expert outside the ship, she bowed slightly and said, carrying a purple gold Thunder Fire hammer, "You must be Senior Li Yuantian of the Thunder Fire Heaven." The man nodded slightly. "Li Yuantian greets the Holy Maiden. I came in a hurry because a powerful pirate group appeared on the common sea route nearby. 3 half-kings from the Heaven of 5 elements and the Golden Crow have fallen. And the Holy Maiden." Ice Snow Chu Ling's pupils constricted slightly. "Senior, please say it." Li Yuantian said, "Holy Maiden, your fiancé Jin Quan has also fallen in the hands of that pirate group. My condolences, Holy Maiden. This is very bad. The Thunder Fire Heaven has informed the kings of the Heaven of 5 elements and is investigating." Ice Snow Chu Ling was stunned for a long time. Beside her, the 2 maids at the peak of the elementary venerable realm were already stunned. 3 half-kings have fallen? That pirate group even dared to kill Jin Quan? Holy Maiden! Ice Snow Chu Ling came back to her senses and her face darkened. "Senior Li, please board the ship for a chat. May I ask which of the top 10 pirate groups did this?" Li Yuantian landed on the deck and shook his head slightly. "It's not the top 10 pirate groups." Ice Snow Chu Ling was surprised. "Not the top 10 pirate groups? Who has the ability to kill 3 half-kings on the common sea route? Li Yuantian smiled bitterly. The Thunder Master suspects that it's a new king among the pirate. His name is Han Fei, also known as the Avenger, and he founded the Avenger pirate group. We are also investigating the news from Martial Emperor City. I believe there will be news in a few days. To avoid trouble, Holy Maiden, please set sail for the ice-snow sky immediately. Ice-snow Chu Ling's heart sank. Although she had her suspicions, since Li Yuantian was here, she couldn't possibly use cultivation as an excuse to stay any longer. At this moment, a voice sounded from the bottom of Ice-Snow Chu Ling's heart. Let's go! I'm already on the ship and in your cultivation cabin. Ice-Snow Chu Ling's heart skipped a beat. However, her expression remained the same. She shouted, "Heave the anchor and return immediately." Yes, Holy Maiden. Ice-Snow Chu Ling only thought that Han Fei's strength had reached the level of a half-king. However, she never expected that Han Fei had killed 3 half-kings in a row. Yes, when Li Yuantian mentioned this matter, she had already guessed who did it. There was no reason for the top 10 pirate groups to rob the common sea route at this time. Only Han Fei mysteriously went out to sea with a body full of treasures. She even reminded him, but he asked her to wait for a few days. Okay. Now, Jin Quan and the others were all dead. And Han Fei came. Bingxue Chuling would never believe that this had nothing to do with Han Fei. After arranging for Li Yuantian, the big ship began to teleport. Ice-Snow Chu Ling also came to the cabin and saw that Han Fei was looking at the fish skin map. Seeing Ice-Snow Chu Ling come in, Han Fei smiled faintly. It's really rare to see a route recorded on a fish skin map. Ice-Snow Chu Ling looked at Han Fei strangely and asked uncertainly, "Are you a king?" It must be noted that taking a king to the ice-snow sky and a half-king to the ice-snow sky were 2 different concepts. Han Fei smiled faintly. To kill a half-king, you don't necessarily need the strength of the sea expansion realm. In any realm, there are strong and weak, and so are the half-kings. Seeing that Ice-Snow Chu Ling looked a little nervous, Han Fei couldn't help but stand up and say with a smile, "At least, you and the ice-snow sky have nothing to do with me. Also, shouldn't you find me a fur cloak? Otherwise, my outfit will look out of place." Chapter 1723. Bingxue Chuling felt that this trip to the Thunder City was a bit dreamy. Although she didn't like Jin Quan, the Golden Crow Heaven forced her teacher to agree. Although she didn't want to, there was nothing she could do. Since she knew that pure yang power couldn't help her recover, she had begun to resist this kind of combination. However, on this trip to the Thunder City, not only did her terminal illness get better, but even Jin Quan was cured by Han Fei. Bingxue Chuling didn't believe that Han Fei's name was his real name. After all, Han Fei used the name Fan Datong to fool her before. But no matter what, she had no choice but to believe Han Fei at this moment. After all, the strongest people on this ship were Li Yuantian and herself. As for Han Fei, he was an existence that could kill 3 demi-kings in a row. If Jin Quan was included, he could kill 4 demi-kings in a row. This kind of expert was not someone she could resist. Hearing Han Fei's question, Bingxue Chuling threw out a piece of turf and said, "This is the snow velvet bark, a specialty of our ice and snow heaven. I can help you refine it." Han Fei smiled. "No, I can do it myself. By the way, how long will it take from here to the ice and snow heaven?" Bingxue Chuling said, "According to the endurance of the hull, sailing at a normal speed, it will take about half a month." Han Fei nodded slightly. "Okay. See you in half a month." Han Fei disappeared right in front of Bingxue Chuling. Bingxue Chuling was dumbfounded. She quickly looked at Li Yuantian on the deck outside the ship, only to find that Li Yuantian didn't notice it at all. At this moment, Bingxue Chuling thought to herself, "I'm afraid that Han Fei is indeed a king. This is a hidden king who has never been heard of before. It seems that he just popped out of nowhere." However, Bingxue Chuling didn't think that Han Fei would leave. He must still be on the ship. So, since he disappeared in front of her, he must have gone to a certain small world. Or, he went to his origin sea. And how could a person who had a small world be an ordinary person? And if he had a origin sea, it would prove that Han Fei was undoubtedly a king. Therefore, no matter from which aspect, Bingxue Chuling didn't think that Han Fei needed to deceive her. Half a month later, when Bingxue Chuling successfully arrived at the Snow God Temple, Li Yuantian cupped his fists at her and said, "Saintess, since I have arrived, I have to go back and report. I will take my leave now." Bingxue Chuling bowed. "Thank you for taking care of me along the way, Senior. I should have invited Senior to stay in the Snow God Palace for a while, but the Thunder Fire Heaven is currently in troubled times, so it would not be appropriate to stay for long. Be careful on the road, Senior." And the main city of the Ice Snow Sky was called Snow City. In Snow City, there was a place similar to the central holy city, and that was the Snow God Palace. The Snow God Palace was not a palace of immortals. It was just a city in the center of the Snow City. The real Snow God's palace rarely appeared. Not long after they got off the boat, Bingxue Chuling said, "Little Xian, little Ya, help me check on the energy fruits and cultivation methods I arranged. How is it going?" "Yes, Chuling Saintess." After sending the others away, the space in Bingxue Chuling's cabin shook. Han Fei walked out of it openly. Of course, Han Fei came down later and suppressed his strength to the peak level of a junior venerable. He was like a sidekick on the boat. When she saw Han Fei, Bingxue Chuling secretly sighed. He had been here all the time. Han Fei came to Bingxue Chuling and said, "You can arrange a place for me to meet you. I can't stay in the Ice Snow Sky for long. Give me the things, and we'll be even." For Han Fei, Snowmorn was no longer of much use. Also, Snowmorn was just a low-quality sea-quelling bizarre treasure after all. It was not very precious. If he could exchange it for so many things, it would be worth it. Of course, if he exchanged the weapon, he could win Bingxue Chuling's favor. Among the 36 mysterious heavens, the Yinyang heavens and the Waterwood heavens were both forced to enter the savage abyss. It was not hard to imagine how difficult their situation was back then. Now, if he could win over some forces, even if they remained neutral, it would be of great help to him. Of course, if they still opposed him, Han Fei wouldn't be afraid of having one more enemy as long as they could withstand his mental torture. When Bingxue Chuling was about to show Han Fei where to go, Han Fei suddenly sensed something. He looked at the sky and said telepathically, "A king is here." Before Bingxue Chuling could be surprised, she saw a human figure appear not far away from her with a swoosh. Han Fei, who had disguised himself as Bingxue Chuling's servant, was looking at the newcomer in shock. Bingxue Chuling was stunned for a long time to see him. Eventually, she took a deep breath and said, "Greetings, Master Wuji." Han Fei was rather creeped out after hearing that. This handsome young man who looked to be in his 20s was the master of the Wuji Palace? Judging from his green clothes, the white fan in his hand, and the way he raised his eyebrows, he clearly had the spirit of a young man. Who could have predicted that he was a king? Han Fei pretended to be shocked and quickly cupped his hand. "It's an honor to meet you, Master Wuji." The master of the Wuji Palace nodded casually and said, "The last time I saw you was more than 300 years ago. At that time, you had just been elected as a holy lady and were only a beginner venerable. Who could have predicted that after 300 years, you had already reached the peak level venerable? Alas, you are suffering from a serious disease, and I can't do anything about it." "What a pity," Bingxue Chuling said respectfully. "Thank you for your concern, Master. I just have some clues about the disease. I just hope that I can make one last effort." The master of the Wuji Palace smiled gently. In his opinion, Bingxue Chuling couldn't survive. What was the point of trying hard? Even the Medicine King couldn't cure her. Who else could? He said, Chuling, did you encounter any accidents on your way to the Thunder City? Bingxue Chuling saw that Han Fei had disguised himself so well that even the master of the Wuji Palace didn't notice him. She shook her head lightly. The Master of Thunder and Fire ordered Senior Li Yuantian to escort me all the way, so there was no accident. The Master of the Wuji Palace said, Jin Quan is dead. It seems that you don't feel sorry for him, do you? Bingxue Chuling was not afraid of being laughed at by the king. Therefore, she said frankly, Chu Ling's relationship with him wasn't consensual to begin with. Chuling was half happy and half worried about Jin Quan's death. I'm happy that I don't have to marry him, but I'm worried that the Golden Crow Heaven will blame the Snow God's temple. Ha! The Golden Crow Heaven is ranked 4th among the 36 Black Heavens. How can they be so stingy? But don't go out recently. Han Fei is suspected to be a king. Not only the 36 Black Heavens but also the top 10 pirate groups are looking for him. Bingxue Chuling pretended to be surprised. Although she wanted to look back at Han Fei, she held back. The Master of the Wuji Palace said lightly, You don't have to worry about the specific reason. In order to catch this person, the 36 Black Heavens and the Martial Emperor City have issued a kill order. I happened to come here and wanted to take a look at you. I'm leaving now. Bingxue Chuling bowed. Goodbye, Master of the Wuji Palace. Han Fei also cupped his hands. Goodbye, Master of the Wuji Palace. Although it was the Master of the Wuji Palace, Han Fei was very reluctant to bow. Other people were nervous when they saw a king, but Han Fei wasn't. He had already killed a king. Why would he be afraid? The Master of the Wuji Palace suddenly said, Your follower's temperament isn't bad. A 9th grade spiritual heritage is also rare. Bingxue Chuling said, That's why I recruited him. The Master of the Wuji Palace nodded slightly. Okay, I'm leaving. After the Master of the Wuji Palace left, Bingxue Chuling secretly breathed a sigh of relief. She walked with Han Fei. After a while, Han Fei said first, I'm leaving. Bingxue Chuling glanced at Han Fei. You also pissed off the top 10 pirate groups? Even the Martial Emperor City issued a kill order? Han Fei touched his nose and said, I'm also very curious. When did I piss off the top 10 pirate groups? Can you help me find out about this? Han Fei was also dumbfounded. From the beginning to the end, I only pissed off a Marauders pirate group, didn't I? Bingxue Chuling said, I will temporarily arrange an ice and snow residence for you. Wait for a few days. The resources will be ready as soon as possible. As for the kill order, I will keep an eye on it. Han Fei didn't intend to follow Bingxue Chuling into the Snow God's temple. The old turtle didn't speak until Han Fei and Bingxue Chuling separated and lived in the so-called ice and snow residence. The old turtle said, Han Fei, this Wuji king is extremely strong. He is definitely not as strong as the White Armor Emperor. This person's strength may be several times stronger than the White Armor Emperor's. Han Fei frowned. What do you mean? How can you tell his strength? The old turtle said, It's based on my experience. If I can look at him directly and measure his pressure, I will be able to make a decision. With this person's strength, even the Life Queen and the White Armor Emperor are no match for him. You have to be careful. Han Fei was horrified. Fortunately, he had disguised himself at the beginning. Otherwise, even if he exerted his full strength, it would be a problem whether he could escape or not. Han Fei said, Old Yuan, isn't there a direct way to distinguish the strength of the kings? For example, what is their strength equivalent to? The old turtle said, There are no beginner, intermediate, advanced, or peak stage kings in the king's realm. They are only measured by the origin of great ways. The so-called origin of great ways can be understood as the origin C. The larger the origin C, the stronger one is. It's hard to measure it by strength. I can only say that the origin C of the White Armor Emperor's level is about 800 kilometers long and wide. Han Fei's heart did a flip. His strength is about 80,000 waves at most. Is there any connection? The old turtle said, Some people might think so, but the great ways are never equal to strength. I asked you to accumulate chaotic aura in order to open up the origin sea. In this step, you can't be weaker than others. Chapter 1724. From the old turtle, he learned the difference in strength of the origin sea of kings. Han Fei made a preliminary judgment in his heart. The old turtle said that the strength of the master of the Wuji Palace was at least several times that of the White Armor Emperor. Even if Han Fei measured it by strength, the strength of the master of the Wuji Palace was at least about 150,000 wave. Of course, in terms of strength, one more wave was a lot. It didn't seem appropriate to double it in this way. However, Han Fei only needed to know that his current limit was about 60,000 waves in a short period of time, and he couldn't be stronger than that. Therefore, at this moment, if he encountered the master of the Wuji Palace, he would almost certainly die. Fortunately, the god-deceiving precious technique worked well. However, the master of the Wuji Palace appeared in the chaotic vast sea domain, which confirmed Han Fei's guess. The death of the Ba King Crab must have attracted his attention. Otherwise, why would the master of the Wuji Palace come to the outer domain in person? Was he really here to greet Bingxue Chuling? Wasn't that **T? Half a day later, outside the ice and snow courtyard, someone delivered a jade slip. Han Fei took it and scanned it with his soul. At that time, even he was speechless. This jade slip was naturally sent by Bingxue Chuling. He didn't know which traitor in the martial emperor city promised to kill his avengers with a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. Needless to say, Han Fei felt that this person must be the crazy Four Kings. Is there something wrong with this traitor's head? Is the sea-quelling bizarre treasure free? Just to hunt me, you're really willing to pay a high price. Besides, this person's hunting order only said that his strength had reached the demi-king realm and that he called himself the Avenger. There was no other description. Logically speaking, who would really pay attention to such a vague order to kill? However, the person's bounty was too high. He offered a sea-quelling bizarre treasure right away, which showed how much the crazy Four Kings valued him. However, in the jade slip, he saw Bingxue Chuling's comment. She wrote, "The other party's purpose is not to hunt you, but to make you on the wanted list. Any hunting mission on the wanted list will be widely noticed. So, that person is just making enemies for you." Han Fei thought to himself, I see. He had thought that the Mad Four Kings had really given him a sea-quelling bizarre treasure and asked someone to hunt him down. It seemed like it was just to make him a public enemy. Han Fei immediately sneered. "Son of **TCH, you're really cunning. Just wait till I become king. I'll be the first to destroy your marauders. I'd like to see how many people still dare to talk about this bounty." Han Fei continued to read. According to the news from Bingxue Chuling, because Han Fei was involved in the death of Jin Quan, almost all the ships in the outer domain of Lei Huiqing were investigated. Now, it could be said that Han Fei was famous in the outer 13 heavens. Besides, taking care of children had become Han Fei's trademark. Han Fei chuckled and didn't care. The outer 13 skies could not be compared to the Yin-Yang sky or the Waterwood sky. There was danger everywhere in this sea region. As long as he wasn't on the flight route, he wouldn't go astray. He wasn't afraid of getting into trouble. In fact, for someone like him who possessed the Multitude Navigator, it could be said that he was like a fish leaping through the vast ocean. He was very free. 10 days later, Bingxue Chuling was very efficient. This might have something to do with her illness. For so many years, she had sacrificed a lot of her lifespan for her explosive growth. It could be said that whenever there was a life-saving treasure in the ice and snow heavens, she would use it first. Therefore, when she confirmed that Han Fei could save her, she saw hope and of course, she prepared resources faster. This afternoon, Han Fei was still sleeping and eating hot pot in Forge the Universe. He was waiting for the bloodline evolution to be completed. In the outside world, he would be able to achieve this bloodline evolution in another 7 days. The old turtle said, "She's here." So fast? Han Fei's heart thumped and he appeared in the courtyard. Opening the array, Han Fei couldn't help but tease, "That's quite fast." Bingxue Chuling flashed in. In the next second, she let out a long sigh of relief and said, "Because I used my own connections and didn't look for her in the name of the Snow God's temple. So, I have to be very careful. Otherwise, it would only take me a few days to trade with you." Han Fei could understand. He didn't want to involve the king of the ice and snow heavens in this matter. When he was full, he could just slip away. What was the personality of the king of the ice and snow palace? He didn't know her at all. If Bingxue Chuling had bad intentions, the best time for her to make a move was when the master of the Wuji Palace was present. However, she didn't do that at that time. Now, whether she would find the king of the ice and snow heavens or not, Han Fei didn't care. Han Fei went straight to the point. "How about it? Let's take a look at the goods first." Bingxue Chuling had no scruples. She threw a sun-moon shell over and said, "Here are 100,000 energy fruits and a total of 6 body tempering technique. 2 of them are heaven-level ultra-quality. I can only find these in such a short time." Han Fei smiled faintly. "That's fine. What about the ice-snow lotus?" Bingxue Chuling paused for a moment. "If you make a move, I won't be able to fight back. So, I would like to swear by the heavens that this is a fair deal." Han Fei smiled faintly. This woman is quite shrewd. Energy fruits and techniques were not a big deal. However, a middle-grade sea-quelling bizarre treasure was not something that could be bought with money. It was all about luck. Han Fei shrugged and said, "Of course." After the two of them swore to the heavens, Bingxue Chuling breathed a sigh of relief and took out an ice lotus with a radius of 3 meters. Han Fei's eyes immediately lit up. The lotus petals of this lotus were crystal clear and carved as if they were real. Part of it seemed to be covered with snow, like a work of art. And in Han Fei's eyes, information emerged. Name Ice Snow Lotus Introduction. It's made of God's ice lotus. Extremely cold original liquid, moonlight gravel, blue crystal essence. Supplemented by the soul of the ice lotus kingfish, which is of great benefit to cultivation. Quality sea-quelling bizarre treasure, soul attachment ice lotus kingfish effect, it can eliminate distracting thoughts, calm the mind, comprehend the truth, promote physical cultivation, promote the absorption of spiritual energy and chaotic energy, and subtly improve the physique. Long-term consumption can enhance cold resistance. Recastable, unrefined, note the effect is doubled when you wear the ice and snow scepter and the ice and snow crown. When Han Fei saw this thing, he was tempted. Wouldn't it be more effective if he used it to cultivate and forge the universe? Even if he didn't enhance the power of the time chain, it should be enough. In fact, what surprised Han Fei was that the ice snow lotus was a set. If it was used with the ice and snow scepter and the ice and snow crown, the effect would be multiplied. When the 3 sea-quelling bizarre treasures were put together, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was an ultra-quality sea-quelling bizarre treasure. However, it was traded by Bingxue Chuling. It was obvious that Bingxue Chuling's position in the Snow God's temple was higher than he thought. Han Fei threw Snowmorn casually and stabbed it into the ground. Han Fei snorted in his heart. "Since you don't want to recognize me as your master, go find your real master." "Well, I don't care about it anyway." Han Fei knocked the void with one hand, and a large amount of blood energy flowed out of Snowmorn and was absorbed by Han Fei. Crack, in the end, Han Fei cut off the connection between him and Snowmorn with the power of his soul. Tinkle, tinkle. After Han Fei cut off the connection between him and Snowmorn, Snowmorn flew to Bingxue Chuling with a swish, shivering. At that moment, Han Fei saw that Bingxue Chuling and Snowmorn resonated. Then, a shadow seemed to be attached to Bingxue Chuling's body from Snowmorn. Hu Kacha. Almost instantly, Bingxue Chuling made a breakthrough. She quickly took out the abundant resources from the sun-moon shell to stabilize her level. Seeing that, Han Fei's lips twitched and he put away the ice-snow lotus angrily. Damn it. She's like this when she meets her real master? Why did she draw so much of my essence blood when she signed the contract with me? An hour passed. When Bingxue Chuling's resources were almost exhausted and Han Fei was considering whether or not to help her, Bingxue Chuling's level was finally stabilized. At this moment, Bingxue Chuling slowly opened her eyes, which glittered. I'm cured. Han Fei shrugged and said, by the way, you've become a half-king too. I suddenly feel that I'm at a disadvantage. Bingxue Chuling blushed. Who would have thought that their search for the dragon blood fruit would lead to them finding a way to treat their illness by chance? She didn't know what the relationship between her and the sword was. However, Bingxue Chuling knew that what was sealed in the sword was probably the soul that she had lost. Bingxue Chuling couldn't help but say, Han Fei, thank you. But I still want to ask you, where did you get the sword? It may have something to do with my own secret. Han Fei was about to make up a random reason, when his fingers moved and his face changed. In his heart, the old turtle reminded him, there's a king. In the next moment, an ethereal voice echoed in the courtyard, I got this sword from the snow god's temple. It's been 80,000 years. I didn't expect that you'd finally come out. White snow was falling from the sky above the courtyard. A delicate woman, wearing a white gauze robe, holding a scepter and an ice crown, arrived quietly. Narrowing his eyes, Han Fei said slowly, Snow Lady. Bingxue Chuling's face changed greatly. Master. Chapter 1725. The Snow Lady was the queen of the snow god's temple and Bingxue Chuling's teacher. Her identity could be easily identified from the ice scepter in her hand and the ice crown on her head. At this moment, Han Fei was ready to fight at any time. After all, the ice lotus, the ice scepter, and the ice crown were a set. When the three of them were combined, it would be much easier. Maybe that was the secret of the ice and snow heaven. Hearing what the Snow Lady said, Han Fei frowned and asked, What do you mean? The Snow Lady glanced at Bingxue Chuling casually. The last bit of my soul wasn't in the chaotic ocean. But it showed up today, which means that you're not from the chaotic ocean. Are you from the Yinyang heaven? Hiss! Immediately Han Fei gasped. How could she have guessed it correctly? Bingxue Chuling was shocked too. Yinyang heaven? The Yinyang heaven that has disappeared for countless years? The Snow Lady said casually, Chuling, do you know why your lifespan is running out so fast? Bingxue Chuling asked. Isn't it because of my coldest body? The Snow Lady slightly shook her head. Because you're not from this era. You're so powerful because you're not a mortal fetus, but a mysterious fetus born in the snow. However, you were born at the wrong time. At that time, human beings went east, and the snow god's temple didn't know whether to leave or not. In the end, I sealed your congenital fetus in the ice lotus and went east with you. Bingxue Chuling had a headache. She knew about the human beings going east. But was she from 70 or 80,000 years ago? She really didn't know. The Snow Lady never told her that either. Han Fei was also slightly surprised. Was she another person who had lived for tens of thousands of years and had been frozen until now? The Snow Lady said unhurriedly, Although I took away the strange fetus, you had already distinguished yourself and grown up. This sword was your weapon back then. It was left in the Yinyang heaven during the battle against the sea demons. So, after you broke out of the fetus, you were sealed in the ice lotus for too long, and you lacked the remaining soul of your original body. I didn't expect to see you again today. Han Fei said casually, That's really weird. The Snow Lady replied calmly, It's not strange at all. There were countless ways to survive in this world. Some people were reincarnated into another body, others were reincarnated. The only difference was that the choices were different. But no matter which method it was not a long-term solution, and there would be a time limit. For example, if Chu Ling did not become a monarch in 300 years, she would definitely die. Even if she became a king, her lifespan would at most be 10,000 years. But when the time comes, I will tell her the truth, and she will go explore the savage abyss. Han Fei smiled faintly. You didn't come here to tell me a story, did you? The Snow Lady looked at Han Fei. The yin-yang heaven hasn't appeared for a long time, and the world has almost forgotten about you. You appeared at this time, and even the master of the Wuji Palace has taken action. You must be Han Fei of the Avengers, right? Han Fei said with a smile. Master Snow Maiden is quite good at guessing. But even so what? Han Fei knew that the Snow Girl didn't mean to kill him. However, no matter what, he had been too careless this time. Although the Snow Girl herself might not be able to find him, she could easily know what Bingxue Chuling was doing. This time, he was exposed because of his carelessness or because of his arrogance. After all, Han Fei felt that he was not weak now. He already had the combat power of a king, and he also had the time technique, so he didn't take the Snow God's palace seriously. The Snow Girl sighed faintly. In the yin-yang heaven, you must be the strongest person in the yin-yang heaven, now, since you have the combat power of a king. So, you are the current master of the yin-yang heaven, right? Wow! Bingxue Chuling looked at Han Fei in surprise. So, I have been cooperating with the master of the immortal palace? No wonder Han Fei could easily slaughter a half-king. No wonder Han Fei was full of disdain when he heard about the Golden Crow Heaven. No wonder Han Fei had the King Shell armor when he attacked. As the master of the immortal palace, even if she was not a king, she could be compared with the sea expansion kings of the 36 profound heavens. How could Jin Quan, a so-called king candidate, compare with such a character? Han Fei smiled lightly. Master Snow Maiden has a good eye. It seems that I have come to the wrong place on this trip to the ice and snow heaven. However, the Snow Girl shook her head slightly and said, You should be glad that you came to the ice and snow heaven. Maybe because of luck, after you came out of the savage abyss, the first one to see through your identity was me, not any other king of the immortal palace. Han Fei thought to himself, You're wrong. The first one to see through my identity was Ba King Crab. However, among the 36 profound heavens, the first one to see through his identity was indeed the Snow Girl in front of him. The Snow Girl said, Your current realm shouldn't be a king, right? Otherwise, the Ice Snow Lotus shouldn't have much effect on you. Besides, as soon as you become a king, you look extraordinary. Your every move is full of charm, but you still lack something. Han Fei said indifferently, So? The Snow Girl was sure that Han Fei didn't look nervous at all. His words and brows were also full of arrogance. Obviously, even if he was not a king, he had the combat power of a king. This was indeed shocking to the Snow Maidens. It seemed that the previous rumors were not wrong. However, although the great Tao of Yin and Yang of the yin-yang heaven was powerful, it wasn't so powerful that a half-king could fight a king. Obviously, Han Fei had other opportunities. The Snow Girl said indifferently, Do you know that the Snow God's temple is from the yin-yang heaven? The Snow Girl said, Back then, I was also from the yin-yang heaven. Among the 36 immortal palaces, only I was from the yin-yang heaven. That's why there are ruins of the Snow God's temple in the yin-yang heaven. Han Fei said, I've never heard of it. The Snow Girl said indifferently, I don't know what your road to becoming a king is like. However, the unusual changes in the savage abyss happened not long ago. In less than a year, you pissed off the top 10 pirate groups and killed the half-king of the 5 elements heaven and the half-king of the Golden Crow heaven. I don't even know why the master of the Wuji Palace is here. The outside world is in turmoil. Do you want to go to the glass sky? It's not going to be easy. I suggest you wait in the Snow God's temple for half a year. Han Fei looked at Bingxue Chuling, who was also dumbfounded. I didn't mention anything about the glass sky. The Snow Girl said, What can you hide from me in the ice and snow world? Chuling wanted to arrange a big ship for you to go to the Sword God's temple, but now all the big ships from the outer domain to the inner domain are being monitored. Han Fei thought, I just killed a few half-kings. Why is there such a big fuss? The Snow Girl said, You must have killed more than a few half-kings to have attracted so much attention from the inner domain. I think you must have done something else after you came out. I don't want to know exactly what you did. It's just a reward for saving Chuling. Han Fei thought it must be about the death of the Ba King. In this matter, he got the little vine and the gravitational force. That should be the reason why the master of the Wuji Palace came to investigate. Han Fei secretly counted his fingers. This should be a secret. However, Han Fei wasn't worried. At least, he still had the 9-palace ruler of fate. At the very most, he could just use the fortune ruler to measure his luck every day. Han Fei asked, Why half a year? The Snow Girl said leisurely, In half a year, the land of the King Grave will open. The venerables and heavenly talents of the inner and outer domains, the mermaids, the undersea humans, and the 100 demons will all go there. There may be opportunities to become kings. More importantly, someone from the glass sky will go there too. Han Fei's heart trembled. This half a year was worth waiting for. Since the glass sky would also go, then when the time came, he could just follow the people of the glass sky back. Wouldn't it be fine? Han Fei nodded slightly. Okay. I'll stay in the Snow God's temple for half a year. Although the Snow Girl was from the Yin-Yang heaven, she didn't need to help Han Fei now that she was already a king. Once the Wuji Palace or the other immortal palaces learned about this, the ice and snow world would probably suffer a heavy blow. Therefore, if the Snow Girl didn't have other plans, she was really loyal to him. Han Fei couldn't help but smile. Master Snow Girl, do you trust me so much? Aren't you afraid that I will be suppressed by the other immortal palaces? The Snow Girl smiled faintly. The Yin-Yang heaven has been silent for too long and has no allies outside. So, you won't give up if you can win the friendship of the Snow God's palace. You don't have to worry about my plan. Before the Yin-Yang heaven can compete with the Wuji Palace, it won't benefit the Snow God's palace. Han Fei nodded slightly. So be it. It would be a waste of time for him to go to the Sword God's palace. If he found the route to the glass sky from the Sword God's palace, there might be more problems. Besides, what if the route from the outer domain to the inner domain was really monitored? If he went out rashly, there might be more trouble. Although he was under the banner of the Avengers, this was just his temporary identity. He hadn't become a king yet, so he wasn't strong enough to compete with the top 10 pirate groups and the 36 Black Heavens. The Snow Girl didn't ask about other things about the Yin-Yang heaven, and she didn't need to know. And Han Fei dared to stay here, which showed that he was very confident. The ice and snow world didn't rank very high among the 13 outer domains. However, the Snow Girl knew that the Yin-Yang heaven used to rank very high. If Han Fei could rise, then the ice and snow world would naturally rise. Of course, this wasn't the main reason. The Snow Girl knew the real reason. It had been almost 90,000 years since Han Fei's last journey to the east. For human kings like them, a lifespan of 100,000 years was a threshold. Kings weren't immortal. Did they want to live? Either they became kings, or they could only raise the next generation. Therefore, even Han Fei didn't understand why the Snow Girl wanted to inherit the Ice and Snow Lotus when Han Fei saved Bingxue Chuling, so she didn't mention a word about the Ice and Snow Lotus. The first update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1726. After the Snow Girls left, Bingxue Chuling looked at Han Fei in shock and bowed slightly. It's an honor to meet you, Palace Master Yin-Yang. Han Fei wasn't used to Bingxue Chuling's bow. Han Fei couldn't help but smile. You can either call me Han Fei or the 9th Immortal Master. Palace Master Yin-Yang? That's horrible. Bingxue Chuling. Han Fei asked, what is the place where the kings died? Bingxue Chuling explained, it was once a chaotic sea where human beings went east. At that time, sea demons, behemoths, and sea humans also participated. However, the kings had a great war when they became kings. The cause was unknown. At that time, many kings died. As such, the place where the king had fallen had become a very dangerous place. Those who weren't heavenly talents would almost certainly die if they went in. Han Fei realized that maybe it was the internal war of the divine palace that King Ba mentioned. It was easy to understand why this place became a dangerous place. For example, the Blood Sea Divine Wood City had become a dangerous place. And this dangerous place was actually caused by the battle between him, the Life Queen, the White Armor Emperor Xuefan, and the Divine Prince. Han Fei asked, so many people went there. Are there many opportunities there? Bingxue Chuling nodded. Of course. It's called the place where the kings died. In fact, some people became kings, and some didn't. Many treasures were buried along with their death. It's said that a lot of those treasures came from an unparalleled secret realm in the east. Han Fei knew what secret realm Bingxue Chuling was talking about. It was the place where his mother and old Han escaped by digging a tree. However, according to Han Fei's memory, venerables should be able to go to that place. But the place where the kings died? Obviously, it wasn't that secret realm, but more like a place where people fought for treasures. Han Fei smiled. In that case, help me get an identity. It'll be convenient for me to enter the ice-snow world. If I want to participate in the exploration of the place where the kings died, I'm afraid I can't do it without a decent identity. Bingxue Chuling slightly bowed. Master will arrange it. We'll see the result soon. Han Fei nodded and said, by the way, do you know? The heavenly desolate city used to be the main city of a divine palace? Heavenly Desolation City? Bingxue Chuling looked at Han Fei and said, that's the main city of lawless heaven. The king of the shadowless heaven had once fallen in the king burial ground. They even disappeared from the chaotic vast sea a step earlier than Yin-Yang heaven. Where did they go? Lawless heaven? He didn't have a deep impression of this immortal palace. When old Han explained it to him, he felt that its name was quite similar to the Infinity Water. It seemed that there was something wrong with the naming of the Infinity Water. After ice and snow left, Han Fei closed his eyes and pondered for a while. Is the ashen sky not in the chaotic ocean? It seemed that there was no way to rebuild the heavenly desolation city. However, there was no rush. After all, he hadn't even found Xia Xiaochuan. Now that Xiaochuan had left the savage deep abyss, the merfolk race was in the inner sea. I wonder, will I meet Xia Xiaochuan in the place where King Wang died? Thinking of this, Han Fei was thrilled. It's been decades. I wonder how much Xia Xiaochuan has grown. The outer sea was far better than the Yin-Yang heaven in terms of spiritual energy, and resources. Xia Xiaochuan's spiritual heritage was growing, and she had awakened a weird heavenly silkworm. It might be even more complicated. At this moment, her strength must have reached the venerable realm, right? 3 days later, the snow girls set out, driven by an ice phoenix, across the sky, shocking the entire ice and snow heaven. What was the purpose of such a grand trip? When Wang Jia returned, a man with an ice mask on his face appeared in front of the world. At this moment, Han Fei stood proudly in the sky, waving his hand, and the ice lotus hovered under his feet. With a wave of his hand, 100,000 knife shadows condensed into an ice phoenix and followed him. Bingxue Chuling stepped to Han Fei's side, holding the ice jade edict in her hand, and read, Today, there are 2 things I want to announce to the world. First, the Holy Child has arrived, and his name is Snow Battle. From today on, he will enter the Snow God's palace and be second only to one. At this moment, Han Fei stood proudly in the sky with an ice mask on his face. His strength had reached the peak level of the venerable realm. There were people who tried to investigate, but they couldn't find anything. Han Fei's leisurely voice echoed in the sky. Second, because the Golden Crow Heaven's king candidate, Jean Quan, died. The holy girl is grieving, and only worshipping the Tao can heal the wound in her heart. She will not marry for 1,000 years. Some people from the Golden Crow Heaven were still in the ice and snow heaven. Seeing this scene, their faces darkened. Good. What a good ice and snow heaven. Master Jean Quan has just died, and in order to not fulfill the engagement, he found a holy child? Someone secretly cursed. And the king personally accepted him into the snow god's palace? This is obviously a deliberate match between the holy child and the holy girl, to get rid of the other heavenly talents of the Golden Crow Heaven. This was a good excuse. After Jean Quan died, the snow girls would accept another person into the snow god's palace to match the holy girl. Although this was a slap in the face of the Golden Crow Heaven, the people of the ice and snow heaven were happy. Why would their holy girl, a woman who was said to have the potential to become a king, marry someone from the Golden Crow Heaven? Although most people didn't understand why Han Fei entered the snow god's palace, the people of the Golden Crow Heaven naturally had a lot of ideas. Although Jean Quan was dead, there were still other heavenly talents in the Golden Crow Heaven. To put it bluntly, the snow girls didn't want to accept this marriage, so they found this snow battle to ruin it in any case. The name of this snow battle resounded throughout the Snow City. While people were talking about Han Fei in the outside world, Han Fei was deducing cultivation techniques at the moment. Bingxue Chuling found 6 body-refining cultivation techniques for him, and Han Fei was deducing them one by one. After this round of deduction, Han Fei had a lot of mixed feelings. In the past, Han Fei always felt that the deduction of the demon purification pot was very expensive. But now, he discovered that it only cost 10,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones and 66 wisps of chaotic energy to deduce the 6 great techniques to the peak level of the Venerable Realm. He had 2 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. How could he be short of that? It was just a drizzle. At this moment, Han Fei finally had a total of 10 body-refining techniques. They were Ancient Desolate War Body, Thunder Manifestation Hammer, Thunder Body, Body of Heavenly Fire, Ice Demon Body, Frenzy Mystic Art, Snow Demon Body, White Wave Battle Body, Water Demon Taoist Body, and Moon Seeking Golden Body. These 10 great techniques were Han Fei's last resort now. At this moment, Han Fei was excited and gritted his teeth. Fuse. In the past, Han Fei could fuse the 3 great techniques into the 64-dimensional fish-dragon dance. Even in the outer domain, it was an extraordinary movement technique. This time, they were all venerable-level divine quality technique. He didn't believe he couldn't even fuse a powerful body-refining technique. Fuse. Han Fei took a look and was surprised to find that this fusion required 10 billion pieces of spiritual energy, 100 wisps of chaotic energy, and a drop of essence blood. At this point, he naturally had to pay this price. 10 billion pieces of spiritual energy was not much. In the past, deducing a great technique easily cost 500 million or a billion. In Han Fei's opinion, 10 billion was still a small amount. Converted into ultra-quality spiritual stones, it was just over 10,000, not much at all. And although the 100 wisps of chaotic energy made Han Fei's heart ache, he didn't care so much at this moment. However, to Han Fei's surprise, he didn't know why deducing a technique still required a drop of his essence blood. But now that things had come to this point, Han Fei didn't care so much. Of course, he directly deduced it. Deduce, crack, the art of fusion also required spiritual energy. At that time, when a large number of ultra-quality spiritual stones collapsed, Han Fei felt that his chaotic energy was also disappearing. And a drop of essence blood flew out from between his eyebrows and flew to the demon purification pot. Han Fei didn't know that at that moment, raging waves were rolling in the outer sea. In the outer sea near the ice and snow, in the endless sea, strange phenomena overlapped, and a huge storm was condensing. In Forge the Universe, after a full half an hour, a great technique appeared in Han Fei's mind. Pure mystic body, ultra quality in the sea expansion realm. Description: the body and mind are clear and pure, and the body is pure and clean. It nourishes and eliminates impurities with spiritual energy, demonic energy, chaotic energy, black and yellow energy, and other pure energy of heaven and earth. It has reached the pure divine body. This technique ranks 998th in the sea expansion realm among the 10,000 races in the sea expansion realm. Disadvantage: it consumes a lot of the purest energy of heaven and earth. Deduction consumption: 1,000 wisps of chaotic energy. Note: this technique can be practiced at any level. Han Fei. Han Fei's expression was weird. I have 10 divine quality body refining techniques, and you only give me one? The sea expansion realm is only ranked 998? Then, if it is placed in the heaven expansion realm, and then the longevity realm, how many ranks will it be? Of course, it couldn't be said that this technique was not strong. It was in the top 1,000 of the 10,000 races in the sea. That was the top 1,000 of the 30 million races. From this perspective, was it weak? Obviously, it was quite strong. Besides, this pure mystic body could be further deduced, but it required 1,000 wisps of chaotic energy. This made Han Fei's heart ache. Now, he still had a total of 1,273 wisps of chaotic energy left. He didn't even want to use the time chain, let alone use it to deduce this pure mystic body. Han Fei sighed leisurely. Fine, I'll just practice it first. It's better than the grand mystic body. Second update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter.